Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports. I know I didn't do our usual intro there. I have a screen open on my laptop, and my laptop has like the capacity of my brain actually, so it can only function with one thing going on at a time. But here with me today, I have two men who I've been on their shows, but they have not been on my. I mean, Logan might have been on me for one. But
Been
here
a
with
couple
me
of
is
years.
Stone. Logan, go ahead and introduce your buddy.
Hi, I am Logan Stone, and I'm an alcoholic.
Really?
Oh, wait, wrong form.
As
No,
he's got a beer next to him.
yeah.
Hi, Logan.
Listen, I'm a functioning one. Okay,
And here
Shut
we
up.
have Darren.
What's
And
up,
here
guys?
we
How
have
we doing?
Darren looking like his normal self with a beard, with his beard back, dude. That clean shaven
Yeah.
thing was not the move, man. Let me go ahead and just get that out of the way. That was not the move at all.
Wow.
We do have a
Totally
guest
took-
joining us later, but he'll be on in a second. So pleasure to have you guys on. And today we're going to rant about the Hall of Fame. I know Logan is extremely passionate that a Cardinal that just retired this past offseason definitely should get in. Potentially two of them. Pujols is a little borderline there, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, so gentlemen, we hate the Hall of Fame. I think that we can all come to an agreement with that. And
Let's burn it.
we're going to talk about why. So, do you agree with the voting structures? So I'm going to go through the voting structures here for the people listening on Spotify. The MLB has 16 voters and 12 votes are needed to pass. So 75%. We all kind of knew that. We're baseball buffs. That's the one we're going to hit on the most today. The NFL has a 49-person committee, one from each NFL city, as well as 17 at-large selectors. NHL has 18 individual appointees by the board of directors, and you need a 75% vote to pass. And the NBA has 24 committee members, and you need 18 votes to be elected to the Hall of Fame, which also goes to a 75% rate. And for the NFL, you need an 80% rate. So to start out, Darren, I know that you like talk. I know that this is a subject you've wanted to get after for a while, so I'll let you really get after it. Do you agree with the voting structures? And if you don't, what would you change? You could pick any league, could pick all league, go for it.
For me, there's okay. I'm gonna start with the NBA only because the NBA I feel like lets everybody in. So I feel like that's like the tier where it's like that's the league where I feel like they just kind of open the doors for like just everybody to get in eventually. So that one I don't even know where to begin with. I just feel like they've lost any. I just feel like they've gone too far in that regard. So I have a massive issue with that. And if I go to the NFL, not as big. I'm looking forward to actually hear a year more of the NFL. But when it gets to the baseball side of it, the thing I hate the most is the writers. I hate their kind of, I don't know, like I feel like they're always sticking their nose up at when these guys, when their career's over. I don't care if they were an a-hole. All I care about is could they hit a baseball and were they one of the best players to ever do it? I understand, like, yes, we want these guys to be morally correct and all those things, but come on, let's be realistic about the Hall of Fame as well. That's not the way it is. If you look at the history of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, there's a lot of people in there with character issues. And there's a lot of people like Bud Selig who oversaw the steroid era and is in the Hall of Fame, which is my biggest gripe with the whole entire thing.
You
That
shut your
pisses me
mouth
off.
with Bud Selig.
I know you love Bud Selig, but that doesn't matter to me. He should not be in the Hall of Fame when he oversaw that thing. So that is my absolute biggest issue with the Baseball Hall of Fame. And the voting, I don't necessarily always like how these voters get 10 votes and then they vote for one person. Use your 10 votes. I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, that stuff is so like wishy-washy with baseball. Like, there's no consistency. There's like feelings involved. And so, Ryan, that's just a big issue for me with the Hall of Fame, especially for the baseball.
Logan, you apparently disagree with the Bud Selig thing, so I'm definitely interested to hear, how you feel about that.
Yeah,
but
Logan.
do you agree with the voting structure? And if not, what would you change?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Darren in the fact that there is like this baseball politics. Like Kurt Schilling is notorious at the moment for being like talking himself out of the Hall of Fame, as he says. And I find that interesting. I don't like that. I feel like a player, doesn't matter like how good or bad of a person you are, honestly. You got to separate, in movies they say you got to separate the art from the artist, especially whenever you're talking about Mel Gibson. But I feel like you got to kind of do that the same with the baseball players. Basketball, I have no idea about basketball. Sorry. Football, don't give a shit. Hockey, go fuck yourself. But baseball, yeah, I feel like there's just so many things about it. Just like, come on, just let the guy in if he deserves to be in. And you're right about the writers. Sometimes the writers are just a little too biased, or like Barry Bonds didn't shake his hand when he was 5 years old, so he's like, I'm gonna hold a grudge now for the rest of the time. And then recently, like Ohtani, like this isn't Hall of Fame, but Ohtani, he got 2 votes from the MVP, and both the people who voted for him for MVP were from the Angels area, and it's just like, what the fuck is like? There's some bias going around, and it goes both ways. Like, just look at the stats, and that's all you need to do. But Bud Selig is awesome. I agree with a lot of things Bud Selig did.
Bud is not awesome.
He is awesome. He made the.
I'm gonna have to agree with Darren in regard.
Oh, I was just saying he made the All-Star game more interesting. So that's why.
Okay, he did do that. That's not enough to sway, in my opinion. Bud Selig's, like, people, are getting shamed for the steroid era, the players themselves. But, like, Bud Selig is responsible for the entire thing because first off, there were no clear-cut rules against steroids, which is on him. I mean, true. As much as, as wrong as it was and as immoral as it was for the players to do steroids, they weren't breaking any rules to the game. That's Bud Selig's fault. Number 2, when the whole thing went down, he kind of tried to sweep the whole thing under the rug. The public was outcrying against Bonds and, Jason Giambis, the Mark McGuires of the world. And he almost like pretended like the whole thing wasn't even happening. Or there would be evidence against, and he would just like kind of try and redirect the conversation somewhere else. There was no accountability there at all. I actually think. And then third, I feel like Bud Selig just had an axe to grind with Pete Rose, which is, probably the reason that he's not in the Hall of Fame at this point. I really do think Bud Selig had it out for Pete Rose. Them two just did not get along very well. But I think the one thing that needs to be changed is that there are these voters that sit on these committees for years, and they're old, they're crusty, and you watch sports and they evolve, they change, but the people that are voting for the Hall of Fame don't. Like we got dudes that were born in the 50s that grew up watching baseball in the 80s, voters that are retiring in the 2000s, and it's like the game has been completely different from like when you grew up watching the game, and it feels like that they're just voting, strictly off of like, oh, well, back in my day, when I started watching baseball, this dude would suck, so he's not a Hall of Famer. It's like, that's great, but in his era, he was amazing. So, and then there's a lack of consistency too. Like when you look at, there are 2 positions. This kind of gets into a little bit of a topic later, like down the show. There are 2 positions that are criminally underrepresented in the MLB Hall of Fame, and it's second and third base for whatever reason. It seems like that the voters, vote on those positions completely differently than the rest of them. So I think that there's just no consistency. Is it how good this player was against the rest of the league, or how good they were at their position during their era? I just think that there needs to be some level of consistency when it comes to the voting. So there's a lot that is wrong with it, and you can apply all those aspects to most of those sports. I do think the NHL gets it right. I think that they probably have the most accurate Hall of Fame, so I'm not really here to bitch or gripe about them, but they're not American. They're Canadians. So of course, they have it right, because Americans are just always screwing everything up. But yeah, so you guys got anything to add to that?
Well, I was curious what your NFL part of it was or did you not want to bring that up? I thought you had beef with the NFL voting of it. I was curious what because you mentioned
so like let's talk about the specific scenario about how it takes Terrell Owens 3 times to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, look, the guy was a douchebag. Nobody liked him, but like he was one of the best wide receivers of all time. Like, why are we waiting until the 3rd time he's eligible for the Hall of Fame voting to be in the Hall of Fame? Like obviously Logan, doesn't really watch football, but at least he even knows who Terrell Owens is, and he doesn't give a shit about football. So like, that's how, prominent Terrell Owens is. And because he's a mega douche, we're like, yeah, we're gonna make you wait to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's up with these personal gripes? As you touched on earlier, like there's kind of an agenda with the writers. So and then the 49-person committee. I didn't know that there was one representative from each city. To me, that just screams bias. Like, come on now. Like, obviously, the writers in their own cities are gonna vote for that's a vote. So to me, that's stupid in of itself. But yeah, the NFL is probably the second worst Hall of Fame. I don't really watch basketball, so Darren, you're probably the only true basketball representative on the show. But yeah, the NFL is second, in my opinion, second worst to baseball.
Yeah, that's a good point about Terrell Owens. Like, it shouldn't. He was one of the best receivers in the league. It shouldn't take him 3 years to get in, and some of these other guys no time to get in.
Well, I think another thing is like you talk about the old school writers in baseball, and like what do they look at? They look at batting average, RBIs, and home runs a lot, and you see like a lot of the guys on my list of players who should be in there are from the 40s, 50s, and even 60s, and are like. They should be in the Hall of Fame by today's measurements, but they're not because they were, I see a lot of people like they just use this old school way of thinking and like, oh, well, he struck out a lot. Like that's a lot of things that I hear all the time is, oh, he struck out a lot. Well, yeah, that's not good, but that doesn't, if his stats are still, if he still has a 360 on base percentage or a 330 batting average, that's pretty good. So I think, yeah, that old school way of thinking when there are so many new tools to measure how good a player is criminally under valued and not being used by some of the older writers, I would say. And some of the older writers still believe that, they probably do come from the idea that, they have the Stan Musials or the Babe Ruths who would play baseball with you in the middle of the road and while their car's just like 2 inches away from your face. And then Barry Bonds wouldn't do that. So, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to vote for him. Terrell Owens wouldn't do that.
Terrell Owens did sit-ups in his garage. He did sit-ups in it.
Yeah. Listen, that's more important. But that's kind of my thing is like they want like every player to be like a monk or something. And I'm like, no. Who gives a shit? No one's perfect. No, not one.
Yeah,
and that is Bible lessons.
I think it's long forgotten that athletes are people. Athletes are people too. Like they can choose to like live their own personal lives. They don't have to go out and interact with everybody. Perfect. We haven't even gotten off our first topic yet, and we have a new guest on our show. This is Adam. He's okay, I guess.
Hi, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
Hi, Logan again. Long time no see, buddy.
Yeah, right.
Ryan, Darren, how's it going, guys?
What's up?
Oh, yeah. I thought your JD Martinez should go back to the Red Sox conversation, right, as the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, I was like ready to call Jason.
I'm sure
Why
Tom
not?
was
We
thrilled
started
about
talking
that.
Dodgers.
He's probably throwing his beer cans against the wall.
But
that shit. Go ahead. I was just gonna say that show went longer than expected.
But yeah, so we were touching on the Hall of Fame voting systems, Adam, and if you think that they are criminally embarrassed, view them real quick for you. So we've got the MLB has 16 voters, and you need 12 votes to pass for 75%. The NFL has a 49-person committee, one from NFL as well as 17 random at-large selectors. You need an 80% vote to be elected to the Hall of Fame. NHL has 18 individuals appointed by the board of 25% vote to be elected. And then the NBA, member committee, you need 75% of the votes to be elected into the NBA Hall of Fame. So do you have any gripes with any specific leagues, Hall of Fame voting system? And like, what do you think it should be if you do?
I think it's pretty fair. Not the, it's always a big topic that they should have more, should have less. But I think it's pretty fair. I don't know what you guys thought, but I think it's pretty fair.
I hated the MLB. I just don't like the way I think it's fair, but I don't think the voters take advantage of the 10 votes. That's my issue with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it should almost. I think you should have a minimum vote. Kind of like you have to pick 3 selections on the ballot. You can't
That'd be
just
good.
do 1. You can't just do 0.
Yeah, like they're like
Like just
the list of,
just enough to where like because if you were.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like just
I say because I was going to say if you require them to.
just go ahead. Just go ahead. You're a couple of seconds behind me, so that's why.
No, your show.
What?
Oh, okay. No, go ahead.
Wait, are we on
Okay.
B Sing or are we on VSN?
No. Anyways, I lost it now. Son of a bitch. Oh, like a lot of the players on this list, they should be voted for. Like there are some. It's not like it's a whole bunch of like losers. Scott Rowland is still on this list, and some other players that should be in the Hall of Fame, but for some reason are just not. He didn't vote for one, I don't think, right?
On the ballot that we're going to show.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring up that ballot.
Give me 1 minute. She's outside parking her freaking head off. But I will definitely get involved in this conversation in a second. Hold on.
This was the recent one that we just had. I saw your buddy with the comment about the committee thing on the William here, and I kind of agree with him. Like the like when Fred McGriff just got in, right? Like if you look at that committee, it kind of seems like it was set up for Fred McGriff to get in. Like I don't know, like some of that stuff is like also I have an issue with some of those committees. Like you said, it's like it's kind of biased in some regards, right? Like I don't know. So that's a big issue with those committees as well.
Can't believe Johnny Peralta's not in. the
Yeah,
Hall of
I
Fame.
agree with that for sure. All right, so I'll ask Adam when he gets back. Since it touched on the different Adam Dunn, 462 career home runs, and I don't think he's ever going to sniff the Hall of Fame. Is that accurate? Like, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, he's got some weird stats. He's like the Mark Reynolds that we were talking about last night. He's kind of one of those weirdo players.
Yeah, 237.
Does the red mean tainted? Sorry.
No, the red means he lost a vote. So for those of you that can't see that down there, it means he lost that vote. So voted for him, and then this year he did not.
So that's all underneath the logo.
This is yeah.
Is there any names?
Yeah, all
under
that's
there that I
underneath
need
the
to know
logos
about?
and stuff. But so we're gonna get right into it. No, all the names for the players are visible. The italicized ones are new candidates, and the underlined one, which is just Jeff Kent, means it's his last year eligible on the ballot.
So either he gets in
that being
now or he
said,
never
let's
gets
start
in.
at the top. Bobby Abreu. He has the committee a couple of years from now. You know what? Let's talk about Jeff Kent first, because this is the one that pisses me off the most. So we're going to get this out of the way. Darren, starting with you. We're just going to go down the list here as we see it. Jeff Kent, should he be in? Yes, no, why?
Well, I had him as my second baseman that should be in the Hall of Fame. So I think he should definitely be in. He played 17 seasons. Yeah, he struggled his first 5, but right after that, I mean, he just he was like one of the best second basemen. Maybe Biggio's in that conversation too for like the next 8 to 10 years. I mean, he was like the best hitter. I mean, what else do you want more from a second baseman to be a Hall of Famer? He was an MVP. He ends up with 377 home runs. He ends up with over 1,500 RBIs. He was a career 290 hitter. I mean, and he's also hit over 35 home runs 8 times in his career. 4 times he's hit over 40, and he won the MVP. I just don't see why he's not in the Hall of Fame. It literally makes no sense to me because when I grew up, he was one of the best second basemen. He's a Hall of Famer to me. Like there's Biggio, and then there was him in the National League. So for a period of time. So it makes no sense to me why he's not in.
Logan, yes or no?
Yeah. I mean, for almost the same reasons as Darren. I mean, he's got 377 home runs, 1,518 RBIs, a career 356 on base, 855 OPS, and a 123 OPS plus, MVP. I mean, from a second baseman, you can't. 4-time Silver Slugger and 5-time All-Star. I mean, you can't really get better than Jeff Kent with what he did. And he wasn't even with a lot of great teams. I mean, he was with the Giants in that period in the early 2000s and the Astros towards the end of their run. But, I mean, he was legitimate. He was a legit guy. And defensively, I don't know anything about him defensively, but, I mean, his offensive stats alone should get him in the Hall of Fame.
I feel he should be in the Hall of Fame, Ryan. I don't
Adam,
know why he's not.
Jeff Kent, yes or no, Hall of Famer?
I feel he should be in.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
why
think
he's not.
Yeah, I think
What's that?
probably all three of us have him as our second baseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, easily.
I said I bet all three of us probably have him as our second baseman because I have him too.
Yep, no doubt.
To me, Jeff Kent is the epitome of. To me, Jeff Kent is the epitome of, like, what are the Hall of Fame voters looking for? Because if it's like versus their own position, I mean, Darren, you said it perfectly. Jeff Kent was the best second ball for 8 to 10 years, and then if it's just against everybody else, well, I mean, he hit 290 and hit almost 400 home runs. So what do you really want from the guy?
And yeah, maybe he didn't win like all these gold gloves, but he just did so much more at the bat. And like, I mean, Biggio is the only other second baseman in that era that was up to his level. Utley was next in line, but I feel like Kent was proven. Like I said, what he finished, I wrote down too. He finished top 10 in the MVP 4 times. I mean, that's pretty legit.
Yeah. It like looking at this list, like there's a lot of players who just really, you really should just. I mean, he should have voted on. So it's weird. It's weird that Jeff Kent's not in there already, and I know some of these are first time, but Billy Wagner, I feel like Billy Wagner should be in there. Houston Street. I mean, there are some guys that Scott Rowland, obviously he's going to be the top guy, I think, aside from Jeff Kent. But I mean, there are some guys who just like should not be here for a second time whenever there's, the last couple of years, there's only been one Hall of Fame inductee. So that's my thing.
What about Bobby Abreu? Starting with Logan.
Bobby Abreu. Pulling up his stats. I mean, 395 on base career, 870 OPS, 128 OPS plus, 288 home runs. I mean, Gold Glover, 2-time All-Star, home run derby champ. Played 162 games for the Phillies twice. I think the least amount of games he's ever played was 58. No, I'm sorry, not 100 games in 2012. That was his second to last year. I mean, I think that's always cool whenever you can play over 150 games a year for most of your career. Pretty solid outfielder. I mean, he should definitely be in.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
What are these guys measuring on? Are they measuring on 3,000 hits, close to 3,000 hits? I mean, what if you were sitting in this ballot and you looked at it and you saw Bobby Abreu not have 3,000 hits? So he was a solid outfielder, though. I don't know. It would take a lot of convincing for me right now to get him in, being honest. And I know that hurts you, Ryan, because he was a Philly. I can't see your face because of the
Darren.
live 26 minutes. But anyway.
Just to be clear, there does sound like there's a little delay on our things. But with that said, Bobby Abreu, to me, he's a hell of a ball player, but he's not a Hall of Famer. That's the way I look. I look at this list. I had right field. It was Abreu. I looked at somebody else. I can't remember. And I looked at Gary Sheffield. Sheffield has 509 home runs. That's usually a magic number to get into the Hall of Fame. I know there's like this stuff with the steroid stuff with him. I know that's part of the reason why he's not in, but I don't think he's ever tested positive for it. And David Ortiz is in the Hall of Fame. So I don't understand why Gary Sheffield is not in the Hall of Fame. Again, he has 509 home runs, a 9-time All-Star. He's a batting champ. To me, he would be over. I would get him over Abreu in a situation like that.
Yeah, I agree with Darren's take. I think Bobby Abreu was good, not great. He has some of the great numbers, but he just is missing that it to him. Tell a story about mentioning Bobby Abreu. If that's how you really want to, there's something about it, that he's just missing. We're going to skip Bronson Arroyo. I think he's a pretty obvious no. He'll probably be off the ballot this year. Just jump right to Carlos Beltran, starting with Adam. Beltran, in or out? And this is going to be a controversial one.
Hold on. I did not get this list. You did not send me the list.
It's right in front of you.
I know it's right in front of me. I'm typing.
Look up.
It's an opinionated thing.
Carlos Beltran. Man.
Really thinking about it.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Well, at least you're not like the voters. You at least think about it. I'm proud of you for that. That's a good thing.
Well, if we're living by Darren's plateau, he did not hit 500 home runs, so he wouldn't qualify, right?
He's not all.
And
he hit a trash can. I don't like it.
Yeah, like that's the big thing, right? Is him introducing the trash can in 2017 and maybe 2013. We don't know for sure, but maybe. I kind of have my suspicions.
We're running the show, bitches.
Yeah, I told him he probably needs to leave it. Yeah. But I mean, I think rookie of the year. I mean, he was always a solid player.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer though.
You don't think so?
I don't see him as like the all-time. Because that's who else I looked at. I looked at Abreu, Beltran, and Sheffield. Like he was really good for a prime, but man, I just don't see him as like. It'd be hard for me to see him as like in the Hall of Fame. When I don't see Sheffield in and some of these other guys, like it'd be hard for me to not see him. I don't see how he's in.
I don't see Beltran in there either. I don't.
But Beltran's tough because he's got that trash can thing hanging over his head now. But I mean, he was one of the best center fielders in the league when he was with the Mets. So I mean, he was very much at the top of his position for, an extended period of time in baseball. I just don't know that peak was necessarily long enough. So, I mean, I could go either way. I would probably say no, just because, just like the baseball writers, I have an agenda. And since he was a Met, I'm going to say no. But
that's a good point. He was definitely, and he was a switch hitter. I agree with you. I think I thought he was going to be a Hall of Famer. I think that's where I thought he was going to be, but he just never.
I think we all did.
Yeah, he just kind of dipped a little. Like with the Royals there, he was solid. Then got to the Mets. Then after that, he just kind of plateaued a little bit. He never had like a 40, 50 and kept going. I think that was the issue with him. And he got hurt a little bit in his career. That cost him a lot of games early.
yeah, for sure. The next one on the list. So I'm going to keep the list off because, my laptop runs at like 3, minutes. It's just awful. I got a laptop just for school. So maybe we'll make an upgrade here for Christmas. But Mark Burley's the next candidate on the list. I think we're probably all shaking our heads no there. Matt
Really?
Cain, R.A. Dickey, no.
No,
Jacoby Ellsbury,
no.
Not when he turned into a Yankee after he left the Red Sox. That was a big fat
Dude,
no.
yeah. Once
sure.
he went all Johnny Damon, dude, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Andre Ethier, no. JJ Hardy, no. You know what? It's funny
JJ
that like they even bother to put some of these names on the ballot. It's like
Yeah,
Because they're leaving off some of these names that should be in there.
Remember when
like-
JJ Hardy was so great for like about 2 years, and everybody wanted him? Him and Mark Trumbo and Chris Davis.
Dude,
Mark.
the Orioles owe Chris Davis till the Orioles owe Chris Davis money past the Bobby Bonilla contract.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to like
I think it's more money too.
2038.
It's like $4 million a year or something.
Good Lord. I figured
Yeah,
nobody would do a contract out like that again.
Well, they had
Parker.
I hope I hit
Parker
this power
checking in
this
on
Mega
YouTube.
Millions tonight. That'd be sweet. Like 465 mil.
What's up? My co-host
What's
here is
going
going
on?
to post up the ballot. So actually, we're just going to force him onto the show. So fuck that ballot. I have a picture
What's
of
up,
it.
Bill?
What's going on, fellas? How you guys doing?
I guess now, if you were watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you also have to listen to it on Spotify. Todd Helton's the next one up. This one's interesting for me. I'll start with Darren. Darren, Todd Helton, Hall of Famer. Yes or no?
I'm gonna say yes. The call just when he played, I feel like he was such a good hitter in his period of time, and for an extended period of time, I feel like he was a Hall of Famer. I don't think he'll get in. He might be like a last ballot Hall of Famer to me. Like gets in maybe towards the last, his last types of eligibility. I'm gonna say yes with Helton. That's not an easy one for me, but I'm gonna say yes.
I say yes too. And I think, really the reason why he's not a first ballot, second ballot Hall of Famer is because he played his entire time. He played his entire time as a Colorado Rocky, and they always say the Coors effect. In 2000, he led the league in hits, RBIs, batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS, and he was fifth in MVP voting, which for some reason I don't get that. But even until his last year, he still was putting up pretty moderate numbers. 15 home runs, which is but his entire career is pretty good. So for a first baseman, that's pretty great. But I think him being a Colorado Rocky for his entire tenure hurts him. And that's a shame because I thought maybe Larry Walker would kind of break down that barrier and that stigma.
Adam?
I think he should get in. I don't know. I know I'm going against everything I just said, but Todd Helton was he was one of the better people in baseball, according to a lot of people. I got to meet him. He seemed pretty nice guy whenever I met him. So I'm gonna say yes, but that's showing me like I met the guy and I got to shake his hand. So like he didn't walk away from me. He actually sat down and talked to me for like 5 minutes. So I'm gonna say
You would
yes.
have got Adam's vote.
Yeah, dude, 5 minutes makes all the difference with Adam, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want him on the list. But he's the voter.
Professional ball player sat down and talked to me. Professional ball player talked to me for 5 minutes. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. And if you want my opinion, Brian
Bill,
Joust
is
talked
Todd
to me
Hilton a
too,
Hall of
so maybe
Famer?
he'll get my vote too.
So I remember watching Todd Helton growing up. While he was a phenomenal first baseman, and I appreciate all the work he did in his later career as a DH, I'm gonna say probably not based on the other individuals in the Hall of Fame. Now listen, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I am 100% unprepared for this situation here. I'm researching the guys after Todd Helton right now while we're on the cast. But overall, Todd Helton for me didn't look like a Hall of Famer. Now, when he was playing, did he look elite? Absolutely. Were there scenarios where I thought that he was one of the best players at his position while he was playing? Yes. However, that does not make him a Hall of Famer in my book. In my opinion, to be a Hall of Famer, you have to be better than the previous Hall of Famer that made it before you, and I don't think Todd Helton was.
What if the previous one was Babe Ruth?
Fair enough.
That's a really solid argument, and I love that argument, which is why I go back to a comment I made earlier that I think that the Hall of Fame voters should be changed to individuals who retired within the last 15 years of voting for that particular year. This way, it's constantly a rotating set of voters. To Ryan's point, because you got people on there have been on there since the 50s, and they're still voting for baseball players that played in the 80s and that style of baseball, and it's just not the same anymore. So I think it should be a rotating thing where players who have retired in the last 15 years should be as old as they go to make the Hall of Fame ballot voting. That's how I think the voting should go.
I think the only issue with that is you run into potential biases of, players voting in Hall of Famers, like dudes that they also played with. So it's kind of, I think there's a little bit of a bias factor there. But I do like Todd Helton. I do think Todd Helton's a Hall of Famer. I think we got to take this Coors Field thing. I'm glad that Larry Walker kind of destroyed that Coors Field thing, knocked down the barrier for that, because Coors Field's big. Like, they made up for the fact that the ball jumps off the bat by making Coors Field huge. So that being said, any guy who hits 316 with a 414 OBP, 539 slugging. He was a 5-time All-Star in an era that Jeff Bagwell was the first baseman for the Astros. So, I mean, he was kind of overshadowed most of the time, but I think Helton was good enough to be a Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah, and then he was also part of the Ryan Howard and Albert Pujols era too, and just never got.
I think he was just more unlucky than anything.
Yeah.
Torrey Hunter, Logan.
From what I remember, yeah. I'm every time I see him on there, I'm kind of surprised he's not. Not in the Hall of Fame. Great defensively, 5-time All-Star, 9-time Gold Glove, 2-time Silver Slugger. 331. I guess really his bat was the problem. I mean, he's never had a truly great year. So it was not a power hitter. Well, it was kind of a power hitter. 20 average about 20 home runs a year. Man, I'm going to say no. I think he's a great ball player, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, actually. So I'm retracting what I just said.
Adam.
When you think Torrey Hunter, the only real memory is him of me that jumped off the bat was whenever he robbed Barry Bonds in the All-Star game with a home run. I don't know if anyone remembers that or not.
I remember that. Yeah.
Barry Bonds
definitely.
tackled him out. And...
Yeah.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Sit down. Sorry.
I am
It's
sitting
cool. I
down.
got 2 dogs. I get it.
Well, last night, little shit. When I was doing a podcast, fucking went in the room and tore up the pillow. So fast. Ripped it to shreds.
Shit happens.
So yeah. Yeah, but it was my pillow. Anyway, Tory Hunter. I'm gonna say no. 9 times Gold Glove, 2 times Silver Slug. I'm gonna say no. I mean, when you think of a Hall of Famer, you got to think of more than one memory. Like robbing Barry Bonds of a home run should not be the only memory that pops into your head. Says that guy's a Hall of Famer. No. So no, I'm going no. Darren.
For me, it's a no. Hell of a player, like I said, but to me, just not a Hall of Famer. Like he'd be in the really good Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like he's just not a Hall. Maybe the guy below him, I got in him, but not him. You know what I mean? So again, solid career, but to me, just should not be in the Hall of Fame. So that's right. To me, it's pretty cut and dry with him.
The Hall of right below fame.
Exactly. Yeah, he was a solid player. Like good times, good all. He just didn't have. You never thought of him as like the best center fielder in the game and dominating, that position. And I think for me, that was again, 9-time All-Star or defensive, a Gold Glove and a hell of a defender, but just not enough for me to put him in the Hall of Fame.
You actually took the words right out of my mouth when you said not the most dominant
Defense
player
in baseball
at
does
position.
not get you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I actually agree with that comment a lot. As good as you are, you can win Gold Glove after Gold Glove after Gold Glove, but unless you're hitting the baseball, I don't think that puts you in the Hall of Fame. I would agree with that comment.
You got to do it on both sides of the bat.
That's right.
Or the
Yeah,
plate,
I agree.
should say.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tory Hunter, 277 career average, 331 OBP, and that just doesn't do it for me. I also am in agreement that he's not a Hall of Famer. Yes, he was really, really good for a lot of years in center field. He was extremely better than average, which is not saying a lot, better than average at the plate for many, many years. And to me, that's not a Hall of Famer. So for me, Tory Hunter's out.
Yep, out here too. Like I said, Darren took the words right out of my mouth. We'll skip John Lackey, Mike Napoli, and Johnny Peralta because if you think that they should be in the Hall of Fame, then you're part of the problem. Andy Pettitte. I'm stunned that he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. We'll start with Darren.
Yeah, it is a little surprising he's not in the Hall of Fame. To me, he is a Hall of Famer. I know his regular season stats don't necessarily live up to some of the other ones that are in there, but I mean, his postseason alone, I feel like is just so good. Like, how do you not? Even when he went to the Astros, he was really good too. I mean, he carried them to a World Series. And he's not, and I don't even like putting Yankees in the Hall of Fame, but I feel like he should. I feel like he is a Hall of Famer. If you watched him in that era, if there was a big game that for me, and it's funny, he's not in the Hall of Fame either. I wanted Curt Schilling and I wanted Andy Pettitte. Those are the two guys I wanted in a must-win game, and both of them aren't even in the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous to me.
You have Curt Schilling in a must-win.
Why is Pettitte not in the Hall of Fame? Is there some sort of allegations that he was a part of that I'm missing?
He was part of that steroid story too with Clemens.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, wasn't he part of this? He was part of the steroid thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 53 names tossed
But he should
around
be in the
that
damn
thing.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Pettitte was one of them.
Yeah. 19 career
I mean,
postseason wins most all time.
You just think of that all you see is the eyes.
I'm looking at his postseason stats. 19 and 11.
Yeah, I mean, career stats in the regular season, which was already alluded to, right? You're talking a 3.85 ERA. He's 256 and 153, which it's a 626 winning percentage, which is solid. His postseason stats again, 19 and 11. Part of several, not several, but a few World Series teams. It is a surprise to me that Andy Pettitte has not been in the Hall of Fame yet. So I would say yes for me. Andy Pettitte should in fact be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, glad
So-
we're all in agreement with that. Manny Ramirez.
I actually don't agree with that. Sorry. I don't think Andy Pettitte should be.
Yeah, I forgot about you, Logan.
Growing up, I remember he had
And
the
me.
greatest
And
pickoff.
me.
Yeah, Adam. You forgot about Adam. Okay, never mind. That's understandable. Sorry, Adam. But a 3.85 career
all good, man.
ERA. Most of those years, like one year he had about a 4.35. I mean, he has a couple of fours and not really a dominant year. And
I understand
his-
that he was assisted by a lot of really, really, really good offenses.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I'm not oblivious to that. But there was never a time where he got on the hill since I've been watching him where I thought to myself, this guy's definitely going to lose a baseball game. And there are some, there are a lot of pitchers when they get on the hill these days, and you're like, ooh, we should really be cautious. But like, I never felt that way with Andy Pettitte. But I understand where you're coming from. I'm sorry. Go
But
ahead.
it's just like for the same reasons why we don't have Torrey Hunter or Carlos Beltran. I feel like it's the same, and I can't even use fit because, like, yeah, he has a good fit, but it wasn't the greatest. Like, he ended up losing all these games, or not losing, but he had all these high numbers. So I just for those reasons alone. But I will still say he is one of my favorite players who had ever, like, just having the greatest pickoff attempts as a pitcher.
That's fair. Definitely did. Adam?
I loved watching Andy Pettitte, even though I couldn't stand him when he was on the Yankees. But I mean, he just looked like those eyes, man. That's all you saw, and they were just so cold. It was just sick. Like, and then
I've actually
Logan
never
was
looked
saying,
into
that
another
pickoff
man's
was-
eyes like that.
Me neither, but you watch enough baseball, and that's all you can see was the glove and the eyes just barely glancing over. It was just haunting. Ryan, you never looked into a guy's eyes before?
He's lying.
About to look into yours like that.
I was gonna say, Ryan said it to me last night that he had never looked at someone in the eyes like that, like the way he looked into my eyes. So,
He's saying that to you too?
yeah, right.
Hey, shh. Yo, stop
Two-time
giving away all my
asshole.
secrets.
Yeah, right.
That's why we do all these shows with him, Bill.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense now. Yeah.
The payment is worth it alone.
So I guess I'll be the tiebreaker there. I do think Andy Pettitte gets into the Hall of Fame. I think that if he's okay in the regular season, but he elevates his game to an entirely different level. When it matters most in the postseason. To me that's enough to squeak in. I'm not saying he should be like a smash in. There's definitely enough reasons that people could keep him out, but I personally think that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that his postseason numbers, most postseason wins all time. So that's kind of a good stat.
Mhm.
Manny Ramirez. I'll start with Adam since he's, the most forgettable here.
Jeez, guys.
I'm gonna say he should be in.
I'm like the newcomer here. Like, man, seriously.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've done well. I mean, I talked to you, Bill, before, but this is the second time I've never done a show with you.
Yeah, no,
Two times
we've
World
done
Series champion, 555 home runs. That's a qualifying number right there. 312 lifetime batting average. Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. 2 times World Series champ with the Cleveland
Logan?
Indians at the time.
I mean, he was one of those other guys who got plagued by the steroids the steroid rumors, at least we should say. But a career 996 OPS hitter, 154 OPS plus. Man, I mean, yeah, I think it seemed like he struck out a lot. Like he was kind of Sammy Sosa in that way, where he just struck out and over like way too much for his own good. But I'm looking at his strikeouts, and it wasn't really that. Early in his career, he had a lot of strikeouts, but I don't think it was anything to hinder him. So I'm surprised he's not in the, because he seems like he's one of everybody's favorite players. So yeah, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Darren.
I mean, he did get caught for steroids when he was on the Dodgers. So he got traded over there, right? And then that second year at the Dodgers, he did get suspended games for him. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I mean, he's an easy Hall of Famer. He was one of the best hitters in the whole entire American League for like over a decade. When he was up to bat, you were scared. You were just scared out of your mind he was going to do something. He could drive the ball to right field. He could drive it to right center. He didn't strike out. He understood the strike zone better than any hitter that played when he especially was on the Red Sox. To me, he's an easy Hall of Famer. But if you, again, don't like the steroid part of it, then he's not for you because his numbers are they scream Hall of Famer. So to me, he is a Hall of Famer unless you have a problem with the steroids.
Is it his defense? The defense that also hurts him too?
What do you have the worst?
Dude, he made the greatest double cutoff play I've ever seen. What do you mean?
I was going to say, I feel like that cutoff play just kind of hurts him so many ways.
Oh, that's such a good
That play was the dumbest thing I've ever seen on TV.
That's so bad.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man.
Oh, Bill. Manny Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his career, he's got over 8,200 at bats. He's got, as Adam already said, 312 average, 555 home runs, over 1,800 RBIs. He's got a 996 OPS. For me, those are Hall of Fame numbers. They really are. But I've already said it, right? Like you got to go back and look at both sides of the baseball. And he was a pretty decent outfielder, in his time. Not a great outfielder. But what he did for the Dodgers,
the MVP of the World Series. Yeah.
What he did for the Red Sox and then also the Dodgers. I think that an argument could definitely be made for him to be in the Hall of Fame. For me, I think he just misses it. I think he's like on that level, like right below. You should be in the Hall of Fame. So like if we're going, we're going like tit for tat. I think Manny Ramirez is on the out for me. Looks like Ryan froze.
Oh, for me, this is an easy in. I think, when I was a kid, steroids are bad. You're the devil if you did steroids. And I think growing up and maturing is kind of realizing, like, hey, these are what they could get away with. And it's a part of baseball history,
Yeah, they didn't stop it then. I don't understand why it's affecting them now. Because, I mean, without steroids and the baseball coming back after everything they went through and they needed that home run battle to get baseball alive again, they should have stopped the steroids then.
Yeah, no, you're right. The McGuire-Sosa thing. Yeah, the McGuire-Sosa thing definitely rejuvenated baseball. I remember I had just gotten home from a baseball tournament actually, and was fortunate enough to see Mark McGuire hit the 63rd home run against the Cubs. Obviously, he was against the Cubs at that particular time. Sammy Sosa was playing center field. So yes, that definitely did rejuvenize baseball, and I agree that at that point in time they should have put a stop to the steroid situation. But at the time when you look at it, it's like it fixed baseball. I mean, you're talking even recently, they've decided to no longer even test for steroids. So it's like a give and take. I don't hold the steroids against Manny Ramirez, and I really don't. I I just don't think, as an overall ball player, he should have made the Hall of Fame. That's just how I feel. I also want to apologize to you guys and any of our viewers. It looks like Ryan's having some connection issues. It's there he is. Hey Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
Maybe.
Sure am.
Got to walk out of
Yeah.
all those porn sites.
Yeah, I know, dude. God damn it. They just keep throwing me like these weird ads, and I'm like, fine, I'll take it. And it keeps,
Listen,
just
I'll send you
slowing
some
down
more
my
nudes
internet.
later. Just focus on the show right now. Good lord.
Just make
Pervert.
sure that your eyes are in the photo, okay? Because
Yeah,
don't tell
right.
any of these other guys, but it's your eyes that do it for me.
Yeah, right. Those beautiful blue
But,
ones.
Yeah, no, Manny Ramirez is in the Hall of Fame for me. I think growing up, steroids were evil. We're just taught to like curse anybody that used steroids, and now that like I'm more mature, it's like it happened. Manny Ramirez was a great ball player. Like I don't care that he got dinged way at the end of his career because he was trying to extend his career. That's the same thing Clemens did. It's the same thing Bonds did. Like these guys were all great players without the steroids that they used toward the end of their career, simply just to get more years out of their body. Like that's really what it comes down
Still
to.
have to hit a baseball.
Maybe A-Rod is the exception. A-Rod's the exception there because he admitted to using steroids very early on in his career, and it's like, okay, you're just a dumbass. But like the other guys, I mean, used them pretty late in their career. So
And then he got pinged again for doing it later in his career. Like he did it multiple times throughout his career. A-Rod did. So
No, I mean, listen, look, we're about to get to the A-Rod conversation, but Adam said it flat out, right? Like steroids does not help your hand-eye coordination. It just doesn't. You still have to be able to hit a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball, 94, 90, 95 mile an hour sinker. Like you have to be able to be talented enough to have your hand-eye coordination to be able to do those types of things. And it's cut and dry and flat out like that. I don't think the steroids have nearly as much to do on what the Hall of Fame voting like makes it out to be as the ball player itself is. Yes. Does it help you hit the ball further? Absolutely. But does it help you hit the baseball? Absolutely not. Like that's just your born given talent. Like that's just who you are as an individual. So I feel like the way the Hall of Fame voters go about like, oh, they've been proven to be on steroids. That's not really fair. I don't think that should ever be taken into account because that doesn't help your ability to be an athlete. You're a natural athlete. It just increases what you're already good at. So I don't really care about the steroid thing. I still just don't think Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer.
And being on steroids, like you still have to put in a lot of hard work. Like steroids just help you recover at like the fastest, like way faster than any humanly rate possible. But you still have to like work really hard. Like if you're just on steroids, sitting on the couch and then showing up to the game and pulling like an Axl Rose where he's like late to 30 minutes to his concerts. If you're one of those types of players, steroids aren't going to do you any good anyway. So you still have to work hard on steroids. And to me, I think it's useless. Now, for Alex Rodriguez, which I'll let Darren kick off with here, who we're talking about, it's a little bit different story because he got banged multiple times at different points to his career. But Darren, go ahead.
A-Rod's one of those interesting ones. He's kind of like to me in like the holy grail, right? Of the guys that are left out, right? He's the Bonds, he's in that Clemens, he's in that type of category because I think he took a lot of heat for it. Again, watching him play, he's an easy Hall of Famer, right? Like he was one of the best players in his position all the time. Maybe not always the best defender, but he was an unreal hitter. I can't say no now, right? Steroids to me don't matter. So to me, he's a Hall of Famer in that regard. Yeah, he's the biggest douchebag, and maybe you could say to play baseball in the last 20 years, just in terms of his personality and like he kind of puts people off a lot about with the way he talks and that kind of stuff. But and I agree, he is an asshole, but I'm gonna still put him in the Hall of Fame because he's a hell of a baseball player. So that's the reason I'm putting him in.
Logan.
Well, I kind of disagree with Darren on this. So sorry, Darren. I think it was a different time. Like if he had only been popped for the first time when he was younger, when everybody was doing it, sure, that's fine. But he did it at least 2 more times, I believe. After, was it right? Didn't he do it in the last time was in 2014? I thought he did it again before. between.
I'm
He
pretty
only got
sure him
suspended
doing it
once.
multiple times was
He
the
only got
reason that
suspended
they
in
like upped the suspension.
2014.
What was that, Ryan?
I'm pretty sure
He
him
only-
doing it multiple times was the reason they upped the suspension to 80 games
Yeah.
and then 160. I'm pretty sure he was one of the catalysts for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, and look, I mean, he's won the MVP 3 times, and it's kind of one of those things like there should be an asterisk next to some of these stats, and I don't know which one of these stats I can believe because his whole, it's not like how Barry Bonds, you have 1998 ish whenever he started using steroids. A-Rod, his whole career is kind of in question, and so I can't really say, oh well, how much was just him. So I don't think he should, and I don't care if he was an asshole or not. I actually like that he was an asshole. Like the infield, or whenever there was that fly ball when he's running around second and third, and he goes, "I got it," and the guy drops it, is greatness to me. I love that. But I think he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Adam?
I think he should.
I'm like back to the eye contact, and hand-to-eye coordination. You can't, and he has over 3,000 hits. Maybe doing steroids hurt him in his relationships because he went through a whole bunch after he got caught. Yeah, you know where I was going with that. Anyway,
But Adam, like,
but yeah, I think he should be in.
He's got 697 home runs, 96 home runs, I should say. How many of those are legit, do you think? Because it didn't help him it didn't help him make contact with the ball, but it did help him make it 10 feet over the wall multiple
The same
times.
argument could go for Barry Bonds. Are we like having the same conversation for Barry Bonds?
Well, I think it's a little different because
it's not the same thing because A-Rod clearly took steroids throughout his whole career. Barry Bonds was already a good baseball player and then went and took steroids.
Yeah, he did it when it was
Look,
still
if we're
kind
gonna
of
talk
a
about
gray
defense
area.
and Barry Bonds can throw out Sid Bream. All right.
Yeah. I'm with Adam on this one.
Adam's still on this, but on that Pirates play.
He's gonna die on that hill, man.
This guy had a broken fucking leg and he couldn't throw him out from second, and the ball was only beyond the shortstop.
Look, I'm with.
It was
I'm
shallow
with Adam.
left field, but still, I think Barry Bonds should still get in though.
Well, my brother-in-law argues that Barry Bonds is the greatest hitter in history. I have to argue him constantly that he's wrong. But like in terms of Alex Rodriguez, you're talking, as Logan already pointed out, 696 home runs, almost 2,100 RBIs, career average of 295. I understand where you're coming from. Like, yeah, the steroids, again, as I pointed out already, does not help your hand-eye coordination. But if you're only basing his baseball talent on his home runs, then yes, the steroids should count. However, you're not basing the steroids on only his home run talent. He already had baseball talent. He like was drafted very young as a Mariner before he went to the Texas Rangers, and then he turned around and became a Yankee. He already had baseball talent before the steroids. He just took the steroids to enhance those talents. So maybe the home run stat is a little exploded, but he's one of 9 players to be in the 600 home run category. For me, he's a Hall of Famer. He's got the whole steroid thing going on about him, but he's one of very, very, very few players who owned up to it. And as a result, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because of his stats around that. Yes.
But what other stats do you look at that's not enhanced? Like, you look at his OPS. His OPS is enhanced because of his steroids. His slugging is enhanced because of his steroids. Because
hitting the ball in the gap is not enhanced by steroids. Like, if you're a master of hitting the ball in the gap, you're a master of hitting the ball in the gap.
Yeah, but
you got small guys doing it this time. Like, without steroids, you have small guys doing it just the same as Alex Rodriguez was doing it. And like, if you're good at a certain thing, that's wonderful. I agree that if he was hitting the ball in the gaps and then, those balls in the gaps turn into home runs, maybe steroids had something to do with that, but it doesn't fix hand-eye coordination. And I stand solid by that. Steroids should not affect whether or not you get in the Hall of Fame.
Here's my take on it, right? So Alex Rodriguez obviously takes steroids throughout his entire career, gets hit for it multiple times. It's different where like Barry Bonds, them dudes took it later after they were already well-established good ball players. Is Alex Rodriguez naturally not on steroids a Torrey Hunter where he's good, not great, fringe Hall of Famer? Or is he an actual Hall of Famer? To me, if you have to ask that question, like there's too much gray area involved, and the answer is no. Like I just think the answer is no based off of that, because if you're taking steroids for your entire 18-year career, or at least periods throughout it, maybe you only hit 500 home runs. And as I asked, before you got on, Bill, Adam Dunn has almost 470 home runs, and no way he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So, like, how legitimate are? Somebody said, I think it was Logan, how legit are those 696 home runs? And Torrey Hunter was a great all-around ball player. He's a fringe Hall of Famer. Is A-Rod Torrey Hunter without steroids, or is he A-Rod without steroids? If you gotta ask that question, the answer is no. I'm keeping him out.
Because it just seems like
I like that take.
Yeah.
I do like that take.
Yeah.
So
what is it? 3 yes and 2 no?
Bill's a yes in the Hall of Fame. Darren was yes. Me and Logan were no. Adam, you were yes in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think he gets in.
All right.
Even
That's
though he
interesting.
lost a vote.
Fine.
Isn't it
Ryan and I are
crazy?
leaving now. No.
Look, I
K-Rod.
understand the argument both ways, but I'm a huge proprietor of if you're good at hitting a baseball, steroids don't really have that much to do with what happens after the baseball is hit. Look, you can be on steroids and pop the ball up 3,000 times. And that's the reality of it. If you have hand-eye coordination and you can see the baseball really well, you hit the ball the way you hit the ball. Sometimes does it go further if you're on steroids? Absolutely. I'm not denying that in any way, shape, or form. However, with bad hand-eye coordination, bad a batting stance, bad everything in a baseball situation, steroids aren't going to help you. So my argument here is that he was a good baseball player prior to taking the steroids. So his stats may be slightly inflated because of the steroids, but I don't in any way, shape, or form believe that they are ecstatically inflated because of the steroids.
Yeah, but you can question it. There's
When was
definitely
prior?
room to question it. Like Torrey Hunter's a good baseball player.
But you can't prove it.
You can't prove that 696 home runs, most of those weren't steroids either. That argument goes both ways.
That's a fair point, but because he did hit 696 home runs, you definitely can't prove it the other way.
Yeah, you also definitely can't prove it your way.
That's not necessarily true because he did hit 696 home runs.
I will say that there are rumors that
On steroids.
A-Rod was sorry. Going back to 2010, was taking steroids back in high school. So, I mean, it just seemed, to me, it just raised, he has so many questions around his whole career that I can't just say, if it turned out that I had a solid, hey, A-Rod started taking in his first 2 years with Seattle and then stopped whenever he went to the Rangers and then did it again in 2009, I would be like, okay, I kind of have something to gauge with, but I don't really, to me, I don't have anything to gauge. Bill, I completely understand what you mean by you have to have some sort of talent. If you had no talent and you can't hit a ball, then even if you had taken all the steroids, you wouldn't be able to hit the ball, 200 feet. So I understand that. I just, to me, it just, I can't quantify A-Rod in my opinion.
And listen, I understand everybody's argument here, but I stand super pat on the fact that if you aren't capable of hitting a baseball, steroids will not help you be capable of hitting a baseball.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we can agree to that. K-Rod, which got the only vote on this ballot, which, just taking a look at this ballot is one of the issues with the Hall of Fame, as we've said several times. K-Rod, a Hall of Famer? Darren?
Tough one. I'm gonna say no. I mean, I feel like I know he has over 300 saves, but like I don't know. I just don't see him. I know he had a lot of good seasons with the. I mean, he has nasty stuff when he was with the Angels, and I know he was really good with the Mets too. It's a tough one for me. He was the hardest one I had with it. I'm gonna say no, but I can understand people voting him in yes too, because I mean he did have a good career there, but I'm gonna go no with him.
Logan.
Closers are always the hardest to kind of quantify, as I just said earlier. Like, it's like you can't really judge them on, the way that you judge starters, which is obviously because they don't have as many innings. But he has 437 saves in his career, All-Star multiple times, considered for the Cy Young three times, and MVP once. 60 in 1 year he had 70. He played in 76 games and had 62 saves. I believe he should be in there, just because you don't get the name K-Rod just from nothing. So I think Francisco Rodriguez should get in there.
Adam.
I'm going to say he gets in.
I'm going to say that
I think this guy, I think he should be a first timer.
that's all I got. I would vote yes.
K-Rod's tough for me, man. Like, closers are the hardest, in all honesty. They really are. I'd probably say yes, just because I feel like it's a position that's like criminally underrepresented, but at the same time, like the closer position, like, is so new in the grand scheme of baseball things. Like closers didn't really exist until like the 70s. Like they weren't utilized, because the starters pitched the whole fucking game every 3 days anyway. So, but I'd probably say he gets in. I think just to get the ball rolling there a little bit. I think he's good. I think he's good enough to be a Hall of Famer. Bill?
Yeah, I mean, it's already been said, right? Like closers are really difficult. What I remember from K-Rod, I definitely think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You're talking, what is it, 400 and some odd saves. Yeah. Thank you very much. For me, he is a Hall of Famer. Look, and it's already been said, right? Like for closers, it's really difficult. Hopefully, this opens up the door for more closers to get in the Hall of Fame. I think K-Rod is in fact a Hall of Famer.
Let's just jump over to the other closer or the other two closers. We'll start with Houston Street. Logan.
Well, you kind of took the rug out from under me. I was already on Scott Rowland. Houston Street. Let's see. He has.
That's why I did it.
300.
Yep, sure did.
Right. 324 saves in his 13 years. 665 strikeouts. Really couldn't get one more strikeout. 141 ERA plus. Rookie of the Year with Oakland in 2005. Good job, Darren.
It's been a bad year for rookies.
Poor Houston Street. I'm gonna say no. I think for some reason he just doesn't do it for me the same way that Francisco Rodriguez did. He just didn't have as much to him, I don't think.
Adam?
I'm going no here too. Just doesn't. I don't know if Francisco's numbers pop out way more than this guy.
Darren?
I think I like Wagner more, but so I want to put Wagner in over Rodriguez, but I think for the same reason I didn't put Rodriguez in. I'm going to leave Wagner out as well. For Houston Street, I mean, I don't even know why he's on the ballot. It's ridiculous. So he shouldn't even be on this ballot. He is nowhere near a Hall of Famer. He's not even a middle of the pack closer. So that's just a joke. He's even on the list to me.
Really?
Yeah, I think he has 300 less innings than K-Rod and Billy Wagner in his career. So as a closer, that's quite a substantial margin.
Adam, quit with the porn. Jeez, 1970s already here.
All right, Billy Wagner. Yeah, all right, here we go. No, I just don't think I just feel like those guys, like Wagner and Rodriguez, I understand the argument. Street to me is just like, he's not even what? So yeah, for me, they're both no's.
Bill, go Houston Street and then round into Billy Wagner.
They're both no's for me. Wagner had a lot of injury issues, which really stunted his career. Had he not had those injuries, we'd have a totally different conversation, but he had a lot of them. So it stunted his career a little bit. So I'm going to go no on Billy Wagner. Houston Street, same thing, less than 300 innings. I'm sorry, 300 less innings than Wagner and K-Rod. So it's a no for me on both of them.
Logan, Billy Wagner.
Billy Wagner. I mean, I think he's a heck of a yes. I think he gets in. He should get in before Francisco Rodriguez. Honestly, career 2.31 ERA, 853 games played, and 422 saves. In his last year, when he was 38 years old, he played in 71 games, and had a 1.43 ERA in 69 innings. And I mean, 2.75 ERA plus at 38 years old. Let's see, a 7-time All-Star, Rolaids relief. I don't know what that means, but whatever. I think he's a yes for sure.
Adam, Billy Wagner.
I loved watching Billy Wagner, but I think Rodriguez gets this vote just because he had 2 of the Rolaids relief rewards, and he also had the World Series. Billy Wagner does not have the World Series, and this is where that has to come into play a little bit.
Is Rolaids that old cough candy that you used to have that they were like life savers
Rolaids
or something?
was an antacid like Tums, dude.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was it was the relief of the stomach, so that's why they gave it to the relievers. That's that old knowledge coming out there, boys.
Yeah, that's that. That's that. You watched Mickey Mantle and his prime knowledge coming out right there. Jesus, Adam.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that section later, aren't we?
Rolaids talk.
Yeah.
Great debate: Tums versus Rolaids.
I'm going yes by the skin of his teeth for Billy Wagner.
Really?
He has all the regular season numbers over K-Rod. He was much more dominant in the regular season. This dude has an ERA over 10 in the postseason. He was horrible in the postseason. I mean, downright like egregious, like every time he stepped on the mound in the postseason. So for me, like he barely, like where Francisco Rodriguez was a little bit more consistent through his whole career and he barely gets in. If Billy Wagner even cut his postseason stats in half, like I think that he's a shoo-in. But for me, I'd get him barely in anyway, just because he was so dominant in the regular season. But then postseason numbers are terrible.
Do you look at
saves though, man?
Do you look at Verlander the same way? Do you come
the same way? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think that if you asked me today, Verlander barely gets in.
Really?
I think that, it's a little different because he won an MVP award too, so he probably is a little more comfortably in for me. But yeah, those postseason numbers, like the World Series numbers for Verlander, are pretty
atrocious.
Yeah,
only just now won his first World Series game with what he's been in.
Thanks for bringing that up. We appreciate
I didn't mean to. I was trying to be as nice as possible. Listen, You guys have so much more shit on me right now than anything. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, especially when we talk about how
I think
Yachty's
Ken
my
Brandt
Hall of
missed the
Fame
eye
snub.
should end instead.
Shut up, Brian. But yeah,
What are Roland better?
I think he's talking about Scott Rowland, right? I don't think he's talking
Yeah.
about. Oh, he's.
I think he's
Or
talking
is he
about
actually?
Rolex.
I think he is probably talking about Rolex.
We're gonna skip Jared Weaver and Jason Worth. It's kind of embarrassing that they're on there. I'm probably the only human here that thinks Omar Vizquel should be on should be in the Hall of Fame, and I'll explain why quickly. He is literally the best fielding shortstop any of us have seen since Ozzie Smith, and I feel like if you're the best at something at a position for the span of 40 years, that probably at least merits some consideration. I know it's defense and nobody cares about defense, but he is the best at it. Like when you think of defensive shortstops in the last 30 years, it's Omar Vizquel and then whoever you want to think of. So that's just my take on that.
I had him in too.
I
Oh,
completely
did you?
agree.
Oh, hell yeah. There we go. That's what I'm talking about right there. Damn it, Darren. I love you.
All right.
Omar
I just want to be back on the
Vizquel,
show
baby.
again. That's why I said. Just kidding.
Adam, what do you think about Omar Vizquel?
He played for the Indians.
Oh, okay. So then
Yeah.
for ballot chewing, you're threatening people's families if they don't vote him in, then I guess, huh?
No, not really, but I just loved listening to him growing up. Listened on the radio because we didn't have any TVs up at camp at that summertime. But yeah, that's what we did in the 90s. 15 years old, drinking beer, listening to the good old Cleveland Indians.
TVs.
I mean, I was the Philadelphia Phillies, but I hear you.
But yeah. So Bill, Omar Vizquel.
Nah, I'm gonna say pass on this one.
Logan's going to agree with me, Darren, and Adam. There we go, for sure. He's not here to speak for himself. I got you guys. Scott Rowland. Logan, thank you for voting
you
Omar
popped back
Vizquel
in.
into the Hall of Fame. We appreciate it.
Omar,
but
yes.
Now we're going to Scott Rowland. So go ahead, lead it off, Logan.
Well, damn it. I had Scott Rowland, then I moved over to Billy Wagner. Yes. I think I don't know why he's not in there. He's Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star, 8-time Gold Glove, Silver Slugger. Part of the MV3 with, Albert Pujols and Jim Edmonds. And whenever you're able to stick around with those guys, you definitely need to be on there. Career 364 on base percentage, 855 OPS, 122 OPS plus, and 316 home runs. Not too shabby. I think he definitely needs to be in there.
Adam.
Also, I'm not sure why he's on his baseball reference. He's a Philly and not a Cardinal, but whatever. I'll excuse it.
I'm actually not too sure by that either.
That's because he played more. He played more years in Philly, though. That's why.
No, I played 6 years in both teams.
Yeah, he hated being a Philly.
He played 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
He played 7 years in Philly.
1, 2,
That's
3,
why.
4, 5, 6.
It's at the bottom of the.
Oh,
baseball.
yeah, okay. My apologies. You're correct, Adam.
Happens once in a while. Sorry, Adam.
No. He played 6.5 years for both teams.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
regardless,
6.
he hated being a
Traded
Philly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Like he desperately wanted to be out of Philadelphia.
I remember that. They booed him a lot, right? Like a ton when he was struggling. That's what I remember growing up. Like when you guys still had the vet, he was getting.
No, he was fine. He was fine to be drafted as
where-
a Philly, and then when it looked like they weren't ever going to win anything, he was very vocal about not wanting to be there.
Yeah.
Darren, you're talking about JD Drew, how the
played
Phillies
7 years
drafted
in
him
Philly.
number 1 overall, and then he never
Correct.
signed.
Yes.
Well, I thought I remember Roland getting booed too, but I do remember JD True. Yes, that one I do remember for sure. That was
What
a
a
good
dick.
one.
Well, I mean,
don't know.
Scott Rowland was booed when he came back, but he wasn't booed when he was like like he was okay being drafted by the Phillies,
Yeah.
and then it took like 3 years for him to realize they're not winning anything. I want out. And then he was booed for not wanting to be here because obviously at that time he was one of the best third basemen in baseball. You know, people were talking about like him and Chipper being the best third baseman in baseball. And he was like, I don't want to be in Philadelphia. And that was, you know, kind of a thorn in the Philly side.
Oh yeah.
All right. So Logan, is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Adam, is Scott Rowland a Hall of Famer?
No. This is my
Why?
pissed person talking right now.
Oh, okay. I was
Because
going
I
to
hated
say.
playing against them. He just seemed to beat the shit out of the Pirates every time he played us. And I don't want to go look at their stats, but that's what it felt like. And he probably should be. So I'm talking bad on him as a opponent team. So probably he should be.
Looking
But
at
he
the
does
Pirates'
only have
record
2,000
over the
hits.
last 20 years, I think a lot of people beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, but that was just one of those names that just you know, it's just there. Like, oh, Scott Rowland's up. Oh fuck.
Darren, Scott Rowland, a Hall of Famer?
No, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. And I would be, if he does get in over some of these other guys that we said no over, then I just don't understand it. Like, yeah, he was really good. He only finished in the top 10 of MVP voting one time in his whole entire career. So he never had like a dominant season. He was a quality player. Like you mentioned, the Gold Gloves, and he won Rookie of the Year with the Phillies. But he only 2,000 hits, 316 home runs. You have to. The glove would get him in the Hall of Fame for you, to me. Like if you just valued his glove so much that his hitting, because his hitting, if you look at the stats, to me that's not a Hall of Famer at a third base position. So if those gold gloves mean enough to you, then I think you vote him in. But just from an eye test, I just don't see him as a Hall of Famer.
Darren, you're fired. No, I'm
That's
sorry. Sorry.
Bill?
Maybe that's why I voted him as a yes, so I could come back on Logan's show one day again.
Yeah, right.
This might be me just being like, you know, a bitter Philly fan. But I'm also going to say no. Scott Rowland was a really good third baseman for a long time, and I understand that Scott Rowland was a really good baseman for a long time. Over 300 home runs, 1,800 plus RBIs, MVP. I think at least once, maybe twice. I just feel like
I don't think he
Never won
he was
MVP.
MVP, bro.
let me
He was
get
only in
his
the top 10 once in voting.
baseball reference here.
He
And
finished
the
fourth.
stats really aren't that good on this guy. He was just a dangerous hitter whenever he came up to the bat.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. He finished top
really.
10 twice, actually, in 2001 and 1998. Both times he was with the Phillies. Logan, stab. Either way, I just don't see him as, yes, Frankie, this is in fact live. I just don't see Scott Rowland as a Hall of Famer. And maybe it's just because I remember all the fighting and the dispute within the clubhouse with Scott Rowland. But yes, he was fun to watch when he was in a Phillies uniform. But I don't remember him after that. And for me, not remembering him after that means you weren't a Hall of Famer. Like if you left the team that I was watching and I wanted to continue watching you, that must mean you were really something, right? Like you were like the guy to watch. But for me, it just no. I don't think Scott Rowland's a Hall of Famer.
Bill, I know where you were going with that conversation because Barry Bonds was someone I still wanted to watch.
Exactly,
he
right?
left Pittsburgh,
So Barry Bonds leaves the Pirates, and you're like, I still need to watch this guy. But Scott Rowland leaves the Phillies, and I'm like, okay, Scott Rowland's gone.
You think he
That's
gets
kind of how I
give me
felt
a
about
reason-
Roy Halladay. Like he was on the Jays, and I loved watching him, and then he became a Philly, and I was just fucking elated because now I could watch him and like really root for him.
And that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point, right? Scott Rowland gave nobody the impression that he should have been like, hey, I'm the guy to watch. And if you're not that guy when you're playing, when your career's over, I don't think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
I
Do you think he
there's
gets
only one-
overshadowed?
Like Logan,
Go ahead, Logan.
when Andy Van Slyke went to the Pirates and left the Cardinals, do you guys still talk about Andy Van Slyke as one of the best center fielders?
My dad does. He was a little bit before my time, so
So that's back to our conversation, Bill. You follow people that you like.
yeah. I mean, but he didn't go. Oh, I'm gonna root for or follow the Pirates now. Do you think Scott Rowland kind of gets overshadowed because of his time? Like, I mean, like I said, he was with Albert Pujols in that time. He was kind of overshadowed on that team, where he might be the headliner on if he wasn't on a team like that.
For me, his number should be better.
I think Scott Rowland's a Hall of Famer. I think the only thing that can really come into question is his longevity, right? He only played 13 years. But if he had a 490 slugging, he was an 8-time Gold Glove winner, and he was an all-star in more than half the seasons that he played in his career. If he had a little bit longer of a career, if he has a 15-year career, 17-year career, and he's a 9-time all-star, this is a different conversation. So I think the talent was there, and I think the peak was just long enough, and he was just good enough at both hitting and fielding that he's in there. I think that he does get a little bit of slight for the way that he left Philadelphia, and I think he was overshadowed being in the same division as Chipper Jones to start his career and then being on the same team as Albert Pujols. But, he was never the star because he was always overshadowed by somebody who was just an outrageously generational talent. That's the way I look at it. I still think he was a good enough ball player.
Do we have a massive Dolphins fan in the crowd? Or is he just giving us updates on the score?
Just so you know, that's my old man, and he's giving me updates on the Bills-Dolphins game because he knows that I'm actually interested in it. He's doing it for me. I was watching that prior to
fantasy value.
Prior to coming on. I do actually have fantasy value going in that game.
How is there
I need
still
Stephon
12
Diggs to get it.
minutes?
I need Diggs to get it. I need Diggs to get a damn touchdown.
How is there still 12
I also
minutes
need Diggs
left
to
in
get a
that game?
touchdown.
Holy shit.
There
have been a lot of penalties.
They were supposed to have
some
massive
decent amount of
blizzards
scoring.
throughout this game.
All right.
It hasn't
Does,
started
any,
yet,
does
apparently.
anybody think Gary Sheffield should not be in the Hall of Fame?
No,
Okay,
he
glad
should
we
totally
got-
be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, glad we got that over with. Last one that you can really debate, and then we can close this out and move on to the next segment is Jimmy Rollins. Yay or nay? Darren shaking his head no.
No, I looked at the short. I was looking before. Vizquel, Rollins, and Garcia Parra were the ones I was kind of debating for with which shortstop I think should get in. Rollins was I really wanted him to get in as from the Bay Area here, Oakland, but man, I know he won an MVP, but I just don't think his career was quite consistent enough. The 264 average kind of scares me a little bit. He did get 2,500 hits basically, but he's just not. I just can't put him in the Hall of Fame.
Ryan
Logan.
and Bill are contemplating kicking you out.
No, I'm contemplating on what my answer is. Logan.
I'm going to say
You motherfuckers all said no to Rollins, so I'm saying no to Rollins.
I'm going to say no. And it's kind of weird because I remember Jimmy Rollins as being one of the best shortstops in the game back when I was growing up. And so seeing all his stats now, I mean, it's kind of like, nothing too great. I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy, honestly. And that's a little disappointing to me.
Adam.
I'm going no.
Sorry, Rock. I just don't see it.
Bill looks like he's about ready to jump through the screen at you guys.
Sorry.
Actually,
Bill.
no.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I listen, I love Jimmy. Everything he brought to Philadelphia. We are the team to beat.
Great.
and then he
short
comes
field.
out and he proves it, winning, the MVP. No, Jimmy Rollins is not a Hall of Famer. I love Jimmy. Listen, I love Jimmy. I really do. Everything he brought to Philadelphia. He brought a World Series to Philadelphia. He brought a World Series to Philadelphia. Let's not act like Jimmy Rollins wasn't the catalyst of that entire team in 2005, 6, 7, and 8 that brought a World Series to Philadelphia. He was not solely responsible, but he was a huge part of it. But no, Jimmy Rollins, as much as I am a Philly fan, is not a Hall of Famer.
He was a White Sox.
Peak wasn't long enough for me, in my opinion. He had that great 5-year stretch with the Phillies as a whole, and then before that he was after that he was took a nosedive, so it just wasn't long enough for me. A lot of hits because he batted leadoff, so he got the most opportunities. Still holds the record for the most plate appearances in a season, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
It does,
but yeah,
does.
That's it. But yeah, so
Hall
we
of
can
Fame worthy.
move on to the next segment. Yeah, we can move on to the next segment. Thank you, Bill, so much for bringing that up and saving me from a terrible lag that my laptop refused to cooperate through.
I got you, brother. Do you need me to put something else on the screen while I leave
Send him a
you?
new one for Christmas.
No, are you heading out?
Yeah, I'm trying to watch the rest of this game, and I was in the middle of kind of sort of a minor date night with my wife.
All right. Well, have fun, man. Tell Allie I said hi.
I will. Do you need me to put something else on the screen? I can still leave this up and put some on the screen.
No, you're good. You're good. We're just talking about the biggest snubs.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, perfect. Hey, listen, Darren, Logan, and Adam, thank you so much for coming on here at the BSing Network, BSing Sports Podcast. We appreciate you. All right.
Thanks for having me on.
You got your welcome on anytime, guys.
I think it's funny. Logan was making fun of Adam for being the most forgettable, and then Bill almost forgets his name.
My bad.
That guy.
Have a good night, gentlemen. Ryan.
Talk to you tomorrow, bud.
Keep up the good work, buddy.
Thanks.
Now I'm just looking at pictures of Jimmy Rollins in a White Sox uniform. It's weird.
I won't look at those pictures because it's fake, dude. They're not real. They're photoshopped.
They're photoshopped.
He didn't play for the White Sox.
There's a lot of Tim Anderson too, which I feel is a little wrong, but whatever. Anyways,
I'm getting his Bill frozen.
oh, there he is.
All right.
I think Bill's frozen.
He's off my screen now.
He's off my screen, but you got to close his extra window.
Yeah.
You got to close his window somehow that he left open with the share button.
God damn it, Bill.
Hey,
there we go. Heyo. All right, we're having tons of technical difficulties tonight. I promise you this doesn't usually happen, but maybe I'm lying, maybe I'm not. Anyway,
not a very good host there, Ryan.
Hey, Logan, I'm drinking a beer.
Suck.
Logan, I'm drinking a beer.
You know who
is
else
it a real
sucks?
beer?
Yeah, it's called Freezing Season White Ale.
White
Sorry,
ale.
Ryan, I didn't mean to.
Racist.
Okay.
Winter Ale. I'm sorry. Fuck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to say what?
Winter.
I've never heard of that.
I don't know. Someone gave it to me on delivery like last week, and I was like, "Fuck, I'm gonna drink it tonight."
All right. So biggest snubs, starting from the pitching position, which has about 300 of them.
Yeah, right.
Logan, you can go ahead and go first. Who's your biggest snub at pitcher?
Biggest snub. I don't know if it's necessarily the biggest snub, but I feel like the biggest one was Oral Hershiser for me from the list I saw. I mean, he had the record for the longest time. I think it was 52 innings without giving up a run. Cy Young once, but I mean, let's see. Let's look at some stats here. 348 earned run average, 369 FIP, and a 112 ERA plus. Cy Young, Silver Slugger, ALCS MVP, Major League Player of the Year, World Series MVP, NLCS MVP, Gold Glove, 3-time All-Star. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Darren.
I said earlier, it's Kurt Schilling, and to me, it's just a joke. He's not in. I don't care if he's a jerk. I don't care what he tweets. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, my God, how could you not watch him pitching in like any big game? He was really dependable. I mean, if you look at his complete game stats, I know the 216 wins for people scare him a little bit, but if you look at some of those seasons with the Phillies, they blew some games for him that could have got him wins. So that stuff to me doesn't matter. And then if you look at his postseason stats, he's 11-2. He's 5-0 in games where his team would be eliminated. You know what I mean? Like that is big game pitching at its finest. To me, he's just
bloody sock, baby.
Yeah, it just. But even to the Phillies with 93 that year, I remember watching it. Like he was damn good on the team. He's part of the reason they made it there. Like I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Like that goes back to the voter thing with him. Like he should have been a first ballot. It doesn't make sense to me.
Adam.
Who we on?
Pitchers.
Biggest snubs. Pitcher.
Oh, I went with a right-handed pitcher, left-handed pitcher, Roger Clemens, and Johan Santana.
Yeah, Clemens, I guess.
Johan Santana can suck my dick. No, I think I kind of lump him and Bobby Abreu into the same. And there was another player from the previous list who I believe kind of played themselves out of the Hall of Fame. I think Santana's last years were just so bad, and he was always having an injury. And he was great for the Twins. And I think he was good for some of the time with the Mets, but I just never saw anything.
He was good up until he threw that
asterisk
pitch no hitter, and then he was just never the same after that.
Yeah, no hitters ruin lives, especially fake ones that never actually happened. Sorry, I'm fine.
Logan, you've been drinking all day. It's all good.
For me, I'm going back a little further than you guys. It's Tommy John. I mean, you literally can't tell the story of baseball without this guy. He has a whole surgery named after him. And despite the fact that he had this surgery a couple times in his career, he has the most wins out of any pitcher besides Roger Clemens that's not in the Hall of Fame at 288. And he had Tommy John surgery. And he has a surgery named after him. So, he's now quite literally the story of every current pitcher's baseball career.
He's tall. I didn't realize he was that high up on the win total.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had that many wins.
26 years in the majors.
Good guy.
Well, Clemens got 354.
So, Adam, we will start with you on catchers. I didn't have the catchers, so I'll just skip this one.
I didn't pick one either.
To be honest, I forgot about the position. I looked at this list
Yeah,
and I was like,
I'm looking at my list. I have left-handed
And then,
pitcher,
like,
right-handed pitcher, first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, shortstop, outfield,
I went from
DH.
pitcher to first base, and I was like, something's not right here. And then right when Darren popped on, I was like, son of a bitch, man, I forgot catcher. So I quick looked up Paul LaDuca's stats and realized he was actually as garbage as I remember him being. So I was like, damn it, I was really hoping that he was better than I remembered. So Logan, go ahead and do your Yadier Molina thing. I mean, catcher thing.
I went with Dale Murphy. And he played a little bit of time outfield and first baseman, but he's a 2-time MVP, 7-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove, 4-time Silver Slugger. Has a career of 346 on base, but 815 OPS and a 121 OPS plus, 398 home runs career, and 1,266. The catching position was pretty hard because, there aren't a lot of great players that aren't in the Hall of Fame. But that's my guy.
Darren.
I thought for catching, well, I assume Posey and Maurer are going to get in here soon, so I didn't put them on the list because obviously I think they should both be in. I mean, for me, they're automatic Hall of Famers, I guess. I know Posey maybe he doesn't get in because he didn't play as long, but I feel like to me, I have Jorge Posada. I feel like we talked about Scott Rowland maybe being a Hall of Famer. Posada finished in the top 10 of MVP voting twice. He had 8 seasons with 20 home runs, won 4 championships with a 5-time Silver Slugger, 5-time All-Star, has a
Totally
career
forgot about Posada.
374 career. So Posada to me would be in the Hall of Fame, and he might be a tough one because those numbers don't just bounce off. But to me, he's
Got
the
4
one
World
that should be in the Hall of Fame.
too.
Yeah, like when you think of those World Championship Yankees teams, you think of Posada, Pettit, Jeter, and Mo.
Bernie Williams.
I've totally forgot about Posada.
And Bernie Williams, yeah.
Wow, that's a good one.
And a switch hitter.
I'd like to apologize to Jorge Posada, my favorite player from that Yankees era.
I thought he was.
I
I
cannot
thought he was in
believe
by now.
I can't believe I forgot about you. I can't even. I wanted him to be on the Cardinals so bad. Oh my gosh. I honestly, this is worse than when we forgot about Mike Trout in a draft. Oh yeah, it wasn't us. Never mind. But it was somebody else. And I'm sorry, Jorge Posada. I'm changing my vote to Jorge Posada.
It doesn't look like he's going to get in though. I mean, he's been on the ballot for a while, right? Like 7 years now, 8 years. So it'd be interesting.
I'm gonna write that in real quick and say that Jorge Posada was also my catcher.
Yeah, me
Sorry,
too.
Dale Murphy. Go fuck yourself.
Dale Murphy, go to hell.
You were an outfielder anyway, you cheating piece of shit. Not even a real catcher.
He was basically on steroids.
Although I do think I think Posey's a lock for the Hall of Fame to touch on.
really.
Like I think. First baseman, Darren, go ahead.
I had Keith Hernandez. I was stunned he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. I was going to go him or Mattingly, and I'm actually surprised. But I mean, how does McGriff get in? But these guys were like the best at their position for like 8 to 9 straight years. And if we talked about Vizquel being in with the best shortstop, this guy was an 11-time All-Star. And in a lot of people's eyes, he's the best first baseman in all of baseball to ever play. And then you look at him, he won an MVP with the Cardinals. And then he won a World Series with the Mets as their best, their captain in that regard. And he just wasn't a power hitter like that. But that's not how first basemen were looked upon at those years. He had 20 home runs. His averages, I want to say, he had 296, 384 OPS, and he was a 2-time batting champ. I just don't understand how he's not in the Hall of Fame, well being an 11-time Gold Glove winner.
Yeah, great defensively too. To have his numbers like that offensively and defensive. Yeah. I'll piggyback because he's my first baseman also. Like that was like Keith Hernandez. He's kind of one of those players that like my dad is like, it's a fucking shame he's not in the Hall of Fame, and he's a preacher. So whenever he says fucking like that, I'm like, oh, Dad. But yeah,
Max at that point.
Yeah, right. Keith Hernandez is just greatness. So,
Adam,
I went with Keith Hernandez too.
I mean, I think Keith Hernandez obviously should be in the Hall of Fame. So I picked Todd Helton just because, we touched on it earlier. Dude has all the numbers. He was just overshadowed in one of the deepest first base eras to be in. Bagwell, Pujols. He was always great, but he was never the best because he was overshadowed by just some elite level dudes. So,
and the Rockies sucked.
Second base. Yeah, that was part of the problem too. Was the Rockies always sucked. Did everybody pick Jeff Kent? I know Darren and I did for second base.
Yeah,
I picked Lou Whitaker.
Okay, different. Love it.
He's not in the Hall of Fame, huh? You're right, he's not. There's not very many second basemen in the Hall of Fame like you were talking about. That was a position of, like Utley's a weird one for me. Somebody commented like I think he gets in eventually as a second baseman. Like I think he joins that class, but that's a very interesting. Like there's just not very many of them, and a lot of them not recently.
There's no shot Chase Utley gets in the Hall of Fame before Jeff Kent. Like that can't.
I agree.
I love Chase Utley, obviously, but Jeff Kent is like the best second baseman in baseball for 10 years. It's for almost as long as Chase Utley played.
That's fair. That's fair.
Plus, Utley hit 265 for his career with less than 300. I think he hit like 320 home runs, maybe tops, if I remember right. Jeff Kent was 290 with 377. Like, he was just a better hitter.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think like you said, Kent should be in the Hall of Fame for sure.
Yeah.
The man hit
third
up 40
base.
home runs 4 times. That's pretty good for second base, man. Pretty good.
Third base, there could have been a few for me, like Ron Santo, Ken Boyer. I even have Scott Rowland on my list, but I had those 3 written down.
Yeah, third base is another criminally underrepresented position in the Hall. Logan?
For third base, I had Scott Rowland. So, but since we've already talked about him, I want to go Pete Rose. I mean, like all-time hits leader.
4,000.
And I mean, he's kind of one of those big controversial guys. MVP, Rookie of the Year, 17-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champion, 2-time Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, World Series MVP, 3-time batting title, all-time hits leader, all-time plate appearances leader, all-time games, 160 home runs, which wasn't great, but 375 career on base and a 784 OPS. I mean, he's probably the greatest player not to get in. Well, okay, it's him and Barry Bonds, but yeah, I think he should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care about his gambling. Yeah,
I don't see how giving yourself extra incentive to win is an issue, but baseball and their stickler stupid rules. Darren, who did you have for third base?
I ended up having. I don't think Roland should be in, but I had him as the best candidate. Let's just put it that way. That's kind of the way I went. Like, I was trying to look at like Sal Bando from the 70 days. He won 3 World Series, batted 3 straight World Series, batted third in that lineup. But he just doesn't have the Gold Glove numbers to go with like Roland's area, and he has like I think a few less home runs than Scott Rowland. The other one Beltre to me will get in, so I didn't really consider him. So to me, it was really just and David Wright. I tried David Wright. Nope, not David Wright in there either. So Roland would be the one, but I just can't put him in. But to me, he's the closest one. So like you made that argument about third base, but then I'm like, well, maybe it is a little weaker than I thought. Like they're solid players. Like back in the day, my guy Eric Chavez, solid third baseman, but not a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? So I just feel like that position has lacked like that. Maybe we get Arenado in eventually here, but I don't. I don't see the third baseman as deep. So.
Yeah, third base and second base to me, something's got to give. I think that they're, the Hall of Famers, the people voting must have played shortstop in their careers. Nobody cares about second or third base. But I also had Roland. Again, numbers that stood off for me: 490 slugging, 8-time Gold Glover, and a 7-time All-Star. So, shortstop, I had Vizquel. I already went into my Vizquel rant. Darren, who'd you have for shortstop?
I had Nomar. I think Vizquel, I had him already in too, so I went Nomar as the next best one. I don't feel great about saying that, but to me, he would be the next best candidate. And his first 8 years were really good with the Red Sox. I mean, he batted 357, 372 back-to-back years.
He wouldn't have got hurt. He would have been a stellar Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
Pitcher.
If he didn't get hurt, he'd be one of the better hitters probably in baseball history. Like, dude could hit.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's where, like, we're playing this game here. Who should be in? And I had Vizquel kind of already in that list. And Nomar was a way better hitter, right, than Vizquel ever dreamed of being. So, and Nomar was no slouch on defense. Let's put it that way. Vizquel took Gold Gloves away from these other guys in the American League, right? It's not like Nomar was a bum on defense.
Yeah, no.
But Vizquel was just another level. So, like, he's stealing 11 straight Gold Gloves from these guys. So my point is like, if you just take his first 8 seasons, I think Nomar has a good case to be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think his overall numbers are good enough to put him there.
Before we get into the other positions, it's a question I meant to ask earlier, but I forgot to ask. How much do you weigh in factors that, like, the players themselves really can't control? Like, Todd Helton, for example, we talk about, being the best of your position for so long. It helps you get into the Hall of Fame, but, like, he's just overshadowed by other obvious Hall of Famers. There's nothing he can do about that. It's like, how much does that weigh into your, like, should that factor into a decision to have a guy go in the Hall of Fame? Logan, I'll start with you, and then you can get into your shortstop.
Well, for me, like, it's really hard for like pitchers, and it kind of goes into like what I was saying earlier about old school players or old school writers voting in old school players type thing on how they judged who got in. Like, I don't think wins and losses should count for pitchers. I don't think RBI should really count for hitters, honestly, because it's a product of who's on base whenever you're hitting. If you get 1,000 doubles or something, then and no one's on base, then like you can't really be at fault. So those are the kind of things that I can't let it affect me. I have to look at I have to look at batting average before I look at RBIs and WAR and a lot of other things. For me, my shortstop was Vern Stevens. I wanted to go with Miguel Tejada, but
I tried to.
I did too.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah.
He's my favorite player ever. I tried so hard I couldn't.
I was trying to work the system, but Vern Stevens. Let's see. There's his 355 career on base, 815 OPS, and it's kind of one of those things. Like, he was a career 286 batting average, or had a 286 batting average, 1,859 hits, 247 home runs, and 1,174 RBIs. Not a lot of solid shortstops, but I think he was pretty good.
I don't even know what team he played for. Does anybody else know?
With Rodriguez. We
He-
already talked about him.
He played for the Browns, Red Sox,
The Cleveland
and-
Browns.
Yeah.
I love Bert Campaneris. He was the other one I had. Another A's guy that won 3 straight World Series, 6-time All-Star. He was the other guy I thought maybe could sneak in. But it's tough, man. If you don't have those, the Hall of Fame is, like you said, really, it's tough to get in the Major League Baseball. I do respect that part of it. That part is, it makes it a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
Well, for the longest time,
I'd rather it be tough.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd rather be tough to get in than easier to get in. I'd rather
I don't want
just
that
like
NBA
not
crap.
let anybody
Give
in.
me that NBA crap. I don't want that. I don't want that.
Well, for the longest time, like, the shortstop and the second base position was purely defensive, and like, your outfielders were more offensively better, and your first baseman was kind of good. But like, you go back to these days, and it's like these guys weren't really. That's not what they were paid to be.
So, Adam, how much would you factor in, player uncontrollables, to a certain extent, if you were a Hall of Fame voter?
Well, now, like Logan, we got into that weird talk today on Tom's show.
Mhm.
Extensions. You can't control how tall you are. You can't control. Were you there when we got into that conversation?
I don't remember that.
How much have you drunk all day?
I haven't drank that much. I've never been blacked out of my. Okay, never mind. But I remember today.
But I mean, like, I don't know. I don't feel all these stats are necessary. I'm not a very analytic guy. I'm a baseball guy. Like, I'm old school. I don't live off
Adam's a
of.
baseball guy.
Hold on. Time out. I have some breaking news. After declining a $3 million offer for Aaron Judge's 62nd home run ball, Corey Humans elected to send the ball to auction. The auction just ended, and it sold for $1,500,000.
Good decision, young man. Good decision.
Sorry,
Somebody
some
needs
breaking
to tell
news right
that
there.
kid's parents that they raised him the wrong way.
He's like a vice president of some like shareholders thing, or like he handles like multi-million-dollar businesses.
Well, he should be demoted because obviously he doesn't know how to do business.
Yeah.
If I would have caught that ball, I would have wanted the bat, and I would have wanted my picture with Aaron Judge handling that ball back to him, and that picture of me handing the ball back to Aaron Judge in Cooperstown for as long as that ball was there. And some money, of course. But I'm just saying, like,
I made the Hall of Fame, Bob.
And some money, of course.
I'm getting season tickets to like the Rangers for like the next 10 years, I would say. Like, Like, I would definitely do that. I want the bat. I want everything.
So
I'm
what would
just
you do
saying.
with the other $1 million, Logan?
The other $1 million, I would.
Yeah, you
I would,
said you're getting Rangers season tickets. What are you doing with the other $1 million?
I'm buying. I guess I'm buying a house that has a room that I can jump in and just swim in that $1 million.
Like Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah.
But Darren, how much would you? Adam, did you answer the uncontrollables thing?
Yeah, I just said I don't really. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah, you said you're a baseball guy. Darren, how much would you
I feel all the
analyze?
stats are ridiculous.
The
Uncontrollable.
The uncontrollable. It doesn't factor too much into it for me. Like I feel like some of that stuff, like it's hard to be like, what if in some regards, like what if Torrey Hunters took steroids or something? You know, what if Fred McGriff was never that? You know, like for me that stuff just you can't really factor that in. You just have to take what the player did on the field, and then so for me that's just the main thing. I don't know Oh, he played in Colorado. Yeah, he did. But he batted 316 in Colorado. Nobody else. He's a dominant player. That's how I look at it.
All right, let's get into these outfielders.
Let's do it.
Go ahead, just list off your. They don't have to play left, center, right. 3
Okay.
outfielders. Go ahead, Adam. Start it off.
I went with Barry Bonds.
Okay. That's pretty.
Yeah, Barry Bonds is on my list too.
Yep.
I don't.
I had
think
4 outfielders because I said Barry Bonds, which I assumed everybody would, and then
Yeah.
3 other
I went
outfielders.
with DH.
Go for it.
I went with like a lineup except for catcher. We don't need that position.
How dare you forget about Jorge Posada? How dare you be the only person on this show to forget about Jorge Posada?
Oh yeah, Adam's here. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, Adam.
Logan, you're here too.
Darren, go ahead. Give me your outfielders.
Oh, did you want them all?
I have Barry
Just
Yeah,
LeVar Bond.
all 3 of them.
Oh, my bad. I went with Bonds, Lofton, and Shoeless Joe.
And Pete Rose, my DH.
Solid.
I went with Barry Bonds, obviously, too. I mean, just ridiculous. Best hitter I've ever seen. Andrew Jones, we discussed. I feel like he should be in there. I think Kenny Lofton should be in there. And Gary Sheffield that we discussed. I feel like those are the 4 guys. And Manny Ramirez. Like, I know Bill didn't disagree, but to me, he's just an obvious one, too. So I just those 5 guys, I don't understand how they're not in the Hall of Fame other than the steroids part of it.
Logan, outfielders.
Obviously Barry Bonds, so I'm not going to include him. Joe Jackson.
Yep.
I'm kind of going on all the controversial players. Kenny
I
Lofton.
just said Shoeless Joe, you fuck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was just surprised.
I know I'm not here, Logan, but I am talking.
No, I mean, no, I just meant I had Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, and Joe Jackson. I had Kenny Lofton in there, and
We had the same outfield, you fuck.
and Dick Allen.
Yeah. As a Phillies fan, we can get behind the Dick Allen thing.
Honorable mention, I will say, was Dwight Evans and Kurt Flood for me.
I had Andrew Jones. I mean, I think Andrew Jones's biggest thing was that he flamed out at like 29 years old, but a lot of people forget he got into the league at 19. So when you look at him like still flaming out in his 20s, like he was a Gold Glover for 10 straight years and he hit 430 home runs. Like, come on now.
462. He almost got to 500.
I had Dwight Evans, 8-time Gold Glover, 370 OBP. And then I had Dave Parker.
He's not in the Hall.
Like I don't know how Dave Parker's not a Hall of Famer.
I have no idea either.
290,
I thought he was
290 average. He was an MVP and he was a 7-time All-Star.
Yeah, and he even won a World Series with the A's in '89. He was a big part of that team too.
Yeah, Dave Parker was a pretty good ball
Yeah, he
player.
should be in. That's a good call right there.
But yeah, those were my outfielders. So last topic of the night before we move on. This is a football question, Logan, so you don't have to answer. Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer?
That's
beat
fine.
Brady. Yes.
Twice.
See, these are the people that piss me off. No, he's not.
Really? You don't think?
Hell
Hold
no.
Hold on.
2 Super Bowls.
That's it.
No, that's a team award. It's a team.
No,
thing.
Yeah, but I mean, he was great in what was it, 2012 in the playoffs. I mean, third down conversions, he was the best at it. He was I became a Giants fan because of him for the longest time. He had, gosh, I like Eli Manning. I think for there was a time. Now I think the last 5 years of his what is it, from 2014 to 19, he kind of fell off and that hurt him. But there was a time when I thought maybe he was better than Peyton, and not by much. I'm not saying by a lot. I'm just saying a tiny bit. I just thought when I was a kid.
Look at Ryan's face. I love it.
Tiny bit. There was a time, but and I don't know. I just think there was. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he's a great player. I think he was held down because he was a Giant, and the Giants turned sucky like towards the end of his career. Don't hate me, Ryan.
I have never in my 16 years of really like watching sports, listening to sports, talking sports, ever heard somebody say something like that in my whole life. I have, you know what? So I'm going to applaud you. I'm going to commend you. I have never in my life ever heard anybody say Eli Manning was better, even for one play, than Peyton Manning. Like, I have never heard that before.
Go baseball.
Which, like, because to me,
there's a reason why I
crazy.
only do baseball.
So like when I think of the name Eli Manning, like if I said Eli Manning to a casual, their response would be
puke in your mouth or something.
Their response would be Peyton's brother. Like that's kind of like the response I feel like most casuals would give you. Oh, Peyton's brother? Like, is he related to Peyton? So, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Like, look, they had 2 Super Bowls as a Giant, and that's a whole different issue of why quarterbacks get way too much credit and like blame in football. That's a whole different show we can talk about. But in the regular season, for the bulk of his career, you know, outside of those 2 playoff runs, dude was super average. Like, at no point was he the best quarterback in the league. He was never the best quarterback in his conference. There's more of an argument that he was never at any point the best quarterback in his own division. You could say Donovan McNabb in his prime was better, and you could say Tony Romo was better as a quarterback too. He just happened to catch fire and beat Tom Brady in his undefeated season and then beat him again. Like,
if Tony Romo would have caught a ball and maybe kicked a field goal, maybe it'd be a whole different story.
But so to me, like, I think he caught fire or caught lightning in a bottle twice. You know, he was part of some like good Giants teams that made some improbable runs. I don't think that he was spectacular in the slightest. To me, he's Phillip Rivers, like quite literally Phillip Rivers, except he was on 2 Super Bowl winning teams and Phillip Rivers wasn't.
Can I go on it for just a second, Ryan, just to help you? I got you. I saw this.
Go for it. Send it. I'm done. I said
the man started 236 games. He finished 500. That is his career as a quarterback. He did win the 2 Super Bowls. The Velcro of the quarter of that wide receiver helped. I know that, but he led the league in interceptions 3 times as well. I'm with you. I don't see it as a Hall of Famer. I just see the two championships against Tom Brady and the Patriots. And the undefeated Patriots is what gave him the edge, and being a quarterback of the New York Giants is what got him in the Hall of Fame. In my book, and being a Manning, which is like a first-class family in the NFL, yeah. I just feel like that is also the part of the reason he's in. Jim Plunkett has two Super Bowls. Why isn't he in? You know what I mean? His numbers, he played quarterback in the 70s and 80s. His stats aren't going to be as good, but he won. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff doesn't make sense to me.
That's because his last name is Plunkett, so that's why no one likes a guy named Plunkett.
Exactly. Everybody likes the Mannings, right? So I agree with you. I mean, I don't see how to me, he's not a Hall of Famer.
I'm glad this turned into a debate because if all four of us had said no or all four of us had said yes, this would have been super lame and really anticlimactic. So Adam and Logan are on team yes, see, this is this is the
I'm
Hall
probably
of
gonna be
Fame.
off Team Logan soon, though. I have a feeling.
I'm not going to go into my Tony Romo thing. There's a game, I think it was like 2012. It was September 11th. No, it was 2011. They were playing the Jets, the Cowboys, and there was this play where he tried to throw to Des Bryant, and Des Bryant was nowhere near the ball where he should have been. And there's this picture of Tony Romo, just his eyes are like wide, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And like it from then on, I was like, "Oh, Tony Romo was good. It's just his team refuses to study the fucking playbook, anyways." So that's my thing. I like Tony Romo.
So I'm glad that turned into a debate. That's going to conclude tonight's shows. This went a little longer than I thought it would. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I said, my laptop.
I thought we were talking about people that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I had one that I was gonna totally rip on.
Oh yeah, you know what? Go ahead. I'll let you guys do your thing then. Pick one player. Pick one player. Pick one player on the list.
Oh.
Okay, I have one.
All right, Logan.
And it's gonna shock everyone. Ozzie Smith.
Please say the guy I'm thinking of, so I don't have to say it, and I can say someone different.
Ozzie Smith. Ozzie Smith is the greatest defensive shortstop of all time. The greatest. I don't think there's anyone who comes close. But you look at his career, and he just doesn't have career numbers. He has 28 home runs, which is fine. He wasn't a power hitter, but he had a .337 career on base percentage. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. And everyone always talks about how great the Wizard of Oz is, and he did the backflips, and he won. He hit the walk-off home run in the NLCS in 1985, one of his only home runs ever. But I don't think Ozzie Smith was, you got to do it on both sides of the ball. That's my motto. And I can't really say, hey, Ozzie Smith is all great, and then Yadier Molina is terrible whenever. You have to do it on both sides of the ball. So Ozzie Smith for me is the guy I would say.
I'm not going to get kicked off Logan's show because that's one of the people I had on there. Okay. I want to say something real quick, though.
I wish Josh was on so he could smash.
Does anyone know how Tom Yaki made the Hall of Fame?
No.
He owned the Red Sox for 4 decades, but he has 3 pennants, and they're AL pennants, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
I was about to say, I don't even know who that is.
Yes, he's white.
He owned them from 33 to 83 or something. So if I was going to go one person, Ryan, I am going to go every pitcher of the New York Yankees that won their games because the Bombers out-hit the other team.
That's
fair.
Can't believe you said Ozzie Smith, man. I just stunned that you said it. I mean, what's he, like a 15-time Gold Glove winner? I mean, like, I just
13-time Gold Glove winner, 15-time All-Star, NLCS MVP, Silver Slugger 1 year, and 1982 World
Jimmy
Series.
Rollins has a higher batting average than Ozzie Smith.
See, I understand like why you would say that, Logan, but at the same time, like my view is like Ozzie Smith is the best at something in history, like period dot. Like, yeah, it's the least fancy, nobody gives a shit about it statistic in the world. But like when you think of fielding, you think of Ozzie Smith, being the best at, as long as baseball has existed, the hardest, probably the most active defensive position, and he's the best at it. So to me, like if you're the best at something, you deserve to be in. It's like Roy Halladay got into the Hall of Fame because he was the best pitcher for 10 years in baseball. Like he was the best for a decade. Ozzie Smith is the best over ever. So
And I get it. And
I understand it though. I do get
like
it.
I said earlier, like, back in the day, shortstop and second baseman were primary, like, you didn't care about their offensive as much because, it was mostly outfielders and first basemen, and even catchers to an extent, but who were offensive. But Ozzie Smith never wowed me, and so that's why. Maybe I needed to watch him play.
I had Bill Mazeroski on this list too.
I also had David Ortiz, so Darren could sleep well tonight. You're welcome.
Harold Baines was the only other one I kind of was a little weird. He got in.
Harold Baines.
Yeah, I thought we were making list, Ryan, of people who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
It was intended to just be like either you thought like this position had somebody that was very obviously in the Hall that shouldn't, or they very obviously had a snub. But like once I started making my lists, I was like, well, this person should be in and this person should be in, and then I was like, screw it, I'm changing it to an all snubs. I was like, they'll figure it out.
I thought Buck Ewing was interesting. He played every position and made the Hall, but he was mainly a catcher.
Every website I went to said Pee Wee Reese, had Pee Wee Reese on that list.
Of being snubbed or should be out?
Should be out of the Hall of Fame.
And that was probably the only one, like, Pee Wee Reese was the one that stuck out to me the most. I'm like, how's this dude a Hall of Famer? Like, I feel like it's because he was just so very heavily involved in the Jackie Robinson thing. Like, to be honest with you, I think that's where most of his name comes from, as being a huge, like, Robinson guy. But that's just, I don't think that Pee Wee Reese did anything special.
I thought Roger, there was another guy I had on here that was Candy Cunnings, created the curveball, and he only pitched for 2 years. Made the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he was in everybody. He was in a lot of lists too. Bruce Sutter, for some reason, was in everybody's like.
I saw that too,
and I was like, he was like a lot of his. I wish I had kept it up, but like a lot of his games, he had an under 250 ERA for most of his career, and like he led the league in saves like 5 years in a row or something. And I mean, he was a great player. And I'm not just saying that because, I'm a Cardinals fan. Obviously, I am an unbiased Cardinals fan, the only one in the world.
You might be too unbiased.
I also don't know why Roger Breshaven is in there. Played for the Cubs, Cardinals, and Giants.
Never heard
of
him.
Got escorted by the police a couple times off the field.
Nice.
Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, if you're naming off names and I've never heard of these players, that just goes to show you like they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't know every.
It was a long time ago. I mean, this guy got inducted in 1945, a year after he died.
World War II.
But like, I'm a pretty like heavy baseball activist, and like, if I've never heard of these people, then like at any point throughout my studies of baseball, then that's probably an issue. Like, I know players from like. Players' names that were great from the 1900s. It's not like I'm that uneducated, but like if I'm not hearing of these dudes, it's like, were you really that impactful on baseball? Come on now.
I saw a thing that Gil Hodges was not in. He got inducted this year. Gil Hodges, he's one of those guys. Like, I think everybody here's heard of him, and it's like, you assume he was in the Hall of Fame, but he only got inducted this year.
Really?
That shocked me.
I'm trying to figure out when this year that I would have heard that.
I think it was a part of. He was a part of the
McGriff.
Yeah, not even the.
No, McGriff is the only one to get in.
Well, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It said he got inducted this year, so.
He probably would have been voted in last year.
No, it was last year.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got anything they want to get off their chest about how criminally embarrassing the Hall of Fames are?
I had one thing I wanted to ask. Do you think that perfect games, how big of an impact that should have into your Hall of Fame?
No.
What about MVPs and Cy Youngs? Do you think those should have an impact? Like, I'm not saying it should be like 70%. I'm just saying like maybe 20% of like, or 30%.
That matters to me big time.
MVPs and Cy Youngs.
Perfect games, like To me, a perfect game shouldn't matter more than any other game because it's a 1-game sample size. Like you look at Harvey Haddix, right? He pitched the greatest game in the history of baseball, but he was like a 4.50 ERA guy. Like he just wasn't good throughout his whole career. He was just great for 1 game. So
I do think the no-hitter matters more, though. Like Verlander, you guys were discussing him, like, maybe the postseason success not being there, but he have 4 no-hitters or something like that. Like, to me, that kind of matters a little bit more. Like, if you're on the, like, that kind of stuff, like Nolan Ryan has 7. It's like that stuff to me is like, I kind of count that a little bit more, but one perfect
But I'm
game,
not about to put Dallas Braden in the Hall of Fame because he threw a perfect game,
Exactly. Or Mark
That makes sense.
So,
Matt Cain?
I agree.
Like,
Hey, Mark
yeah,
Burley
like
is greatness.
to me, MVPs and like Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers and Cy Youngs, they're like awards indicative of how good you were over a whole season. So that matters a little bit more. And if you have multiple of those awards, it tells me, okay, somebody who apparently knows more than I do thinks that you were the best at your position over the whole season for, numerous times throughout your career. But so 1-game sample sizes, I treat them as such.
Okay. That makes sense. I get that. That's all I had.
Yeah. But, well, I'll let you individually plug up your shows and then I will kick you out, do the outro, which will be about 20 seconds. And then we can bullshit for another 30 minutes after the show. Cool. Adam, starting with you, where can we find you?
At Sports Talking Driving to the Top Productions. We had some long ass shows on today. I feel I've been behind the mic all day, Ryan.
And driving.
This is the longest show in BSing sports history, so you're a part of it.
Glad to be part of it. Thank you.
All right, Logan, where can we find you?
You can find me at the Variety Sports Network, where I talk baseball pretty much 24 hours a day. I do 7th inning stretch Mondays and Fridays. During the offseason, it's only going to be on Fridays. And then Cardinals Chronicles on Wednesdays, where I talk about my favorite team, the Cardinals. It's about to be Phillies Chronicles because fuck the Cardinals. From an unbiased Cardinal fan, it's very refreshing, I'm sure. But yeah. And then you can also find me on the Variety Sports Network Christmas holiday special episode next Wednesday on December 21st. And Ryan, I need to talk to you about something.
Okay, cool. Last but not least, Darren, where can we find you?
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for having me on, man. I know we've been talking about this Hall of Fame thing for a couple of weeks, so I'm glad that we could finally put it together. And thanks for letting me jump on your guys' network here and discuss it. Yeah, you can find me Sunday mornings, Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports, or the Variety Sports Network. I do a Talk in the Gridiron every Sunday night, recapping the football games. And so those are the spot you can find us. This week we'll be talking a little bit of the Warriors and their slump in the NBA, and we'll be talking about Carlos Correa and the big signing for the Giants, as that will get Tyler's thought on that tomorrow morning. So, look for us there at Fat Boy Fadeaway.
Thank you, Darren. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan, here at BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network. You can find us at the website, which is right up here, www.bsingsports.com. There's a link to our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. For those of you that cannot catch our stuff live, go ahead, like, retweet, subscribe, follow, share, and most importantly, tell your friends about us and tell somebody that you love them today. Again, Ryan Swift at the BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network, here where we do a little BS, talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night.